Well, let's go here. Let's go. Is that it? No. Is that it? Yep. Oh, cool. Is Apex not opening for me now? Cool. Cool. Let me. Fucking responding. Close it from the task manager. Like something broke. Oh, this is how we're starting off, huh? Who's this guy?
I just got scammed on Discord, and I want to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, so I'm going to break down exactly what happened so you know what to look for.
That's not
now,
surprising.
Recently, I got sponsored by W Energy, and so I joined the Discord server
Yeah,
to
there you
reach out
go.
to other content
There you go.
creators
Yeah, you're an
and hopefully
idiot.
make some more connections.
No
So I
one
was
got
completely
sponsored
shocked
by
when I started
W
getting some
Energy.
messages from other content creators. However, this one was a little bit suspicious. It all started with this message from Riot Games. So immediately a red flag went off in my head when I saw the name Riot Games, because clearly that's a massive company. But what really caught me off guard was, yo, what's up? Like, it seemed somewhat realistic, but maybe someone was trying to act like they were just an individual. So immediately I asked, where did you hear from me from? Or where did you hear about me from? And without really giving an explanation, they say that they're a streamer and they've left some other servers and just reached out to me, which doesn't really make much sense. So I went ahead and played it off and just kind of kept talking, you know, on the off chance that it might actually be someone just reaching out, and maybe they just used the name Riot Games just because. So we had a little bit of a conversation, just asking about what games we play and how streaming was going, and then something big happened. He kept asking me if I was affiliated or if I was making money yet, and wanted to know what I was doing to help out my content. And then finally he sends me his channel link, apparently. And the link that it sent me to shows this on YouTube, which has over 3.7 million subscribers. So right there I thought, okay, this is not legit, because there's no one with over 3 million subscribers is reaching out to me. This is where things really took a turn. Once I saw that he had 3.5 million subscribers, I knew there was no chance he was just reaching out to me out of the kindness of his heart, completely unsolicited. He makes a statement, LOL, yeah, I'm monetized on YouTube. Like, clearly, dude, like, that's pretty obvious at this point. So he kept asking for my channel link, and I thought there was just something off about it. Like, I didn't want to send him a link to my channel for some reason, just on the off chance that there's maybe something crazy that you could do on the backside of having a channel link. I don't know. I just wanted to be safe, so instead I took a screenshot of my channel and said, this is my channel. And that was pretty much that. But he kept asking me what I was doing to grow my channel, and he kept insisting that I hire staff to do that. And of course, I'm not even monetized yet, so I kept saying, I can't really do this without being monetized. I can't start just to grow my channel, and I'm not even in the first place. I can pay people. So, you know, eventually I told him, you know, I do plan, you know, if I get there to that point, that, you know, maybe I will consider hiring staff or doing more things. But honestly, you know, on my own.
Oh my god, they're still following me? Who dropped me there? And why the fuck am I not life-wide? Fuck this game. Get me out of it.
Shut the fuck up, dumbass.
You're a bitch.
Seems strange.
Kill
Like,
yourself.
why are you
Delete the
being
game.
so nice if you have over 3.5 million subscribers to such a small content creator? And I thought, you know, there is like a 1% chance that maybe this is real. Maybe he's just reaching out to small creators wanting to actually offer a helping hand. But I definitely did not think that was happening. What finally did me in was when he sent me the name of the person on Discord that he wanted me to reach out to. I went ahead and messaged him just to play along and see what he said. And immediately when I got the response back, I knew this could not be legit. There's no way a professional content creation promoter would respond like this. So anyways, I don't know exactly where this was going to go. I figured if I kept playing along, it would eventually end up with him wanting me to pay him for services and then never receiving said services. And I just want to let you guys know that this is happening and it's out there. People are imitating large streamers and asking you to pay them for content creation promotion and apparently helping grow your channel. But I would not trust it. If you get an unsolicited message in Discord, it is probably some kind of scam. Oh, and for the cherry on top, his Discord account was just created last year. So for somebody that has 3.5 million subscribers on YouTube, I highly doubt he just created a Discord account last year. So anyways, take it as you will. I just wanted to get this information out there so you know that it's happening.
Grab them afterwards. Yes. So we have a few options. We might put pillows down and touch them because they're probably going to die by falling out of the net. Okay, so let me draw out, chat, what's going on here. What the my... Wait, is this gluten-free bread? Wait, this burger looks thick as fuck.
Introducing your champion.
Losing isn't fun. That's why I don't do it.
I'm the jump master. No straying now.
Fucking fantastic. What'd you think I was gonna say? Wait, people hate the burger? That was fucking amazing. Wait, people hate the burger? That was fucking amazing.
Wow, it's not real meat. So that's great. Get ready, moving on.
That's like me liking a Tesla. I hate. Oh yeah, look at this problem. Oh, shut the fuck up, okay? That's why I told you to come over here. Yep.
Round 1. Beginning ring countdown.
That was me.
First
Tech news is like your fingers, something you can count on. But unlike fingers, tech news is far less vulnerable to firework accidents. Apple's upcoming AI features may not impress or surprise those already familiar with AI tech, according to Mark Gurman. The only surprise may be that the features won't be fully on device. In his most recent Power On newsletter, Gurman discusses how Apple is apparently focusing on tools that people may actually want to use. Generally a good idea. A big part of this is Project Grey Matter, an AI toolkit that Apple will integrate into its core apps, Safari, Photos, and Notes. It's probably similar to Microsoft's Copilot, but with the revolutionary idea of not overusing the name Copilot. Many familiar AI-powered features will be introduced by the Fruit Fraternity, including photo retouching and suggested email replies and messages. Apple also wants to generate smart recaps that will summarize users' missed notifications, text messages, notes, and other media. But while it's really exciting that Apple is doing what everyone else has already done, Tim and the team are apparently also backsliding on their promise to keep users' data on their devices for privacy. This comes after the company has repeatedly criticized its competitors for not keeping user data on device only. But Apple has to add AI. I mean, it's not like any consumers actually want it, but because every other company is already doing it. And if they don't, Tim Cook is gonna look like a loser.
Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella are gonna give him a swirly.
He's gonna have flashbacks. It sucks. AMD's next motherboard chipset will be skipping a number, according to Chinese outlet Benchmark. AMD's current flagship chipset is X670, but it appears the company's follow-up will be X870, not X770. Because apparently no one cares about consistent numbering anymore, which is evidenced by the fact we don't have an iPhone or Windows 9. You can skip them when you want to. It's free. The name was initially leaked earlier this year by YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead, who also claimed that the boards will be shown off at this year's conference. This would make sense, since AMD is giving the opening keynote at the event, which the company promises will showcase their next generation of high-performance PC. The Computex debut may also be part of the reason for the naming change. It seems Intel will also be debuting new MOBOs at the event, specifically the Z890 motherboard. AMD doesn't want their number to be smaller than Team Blue's. Everyone will point and laugh. See the Tim Cook example.
It's all rock locker room hazing at this point.
Swirlies all around. This follows countless examples of tech companies changing their naming scheme to compete with other naming schemes. Just last week, a leaker claimed that AMD renamed their upcoming mobile chips from Ryzen AI 100 to Ryzen AI 300 to appear bigger than Intel's upcoming Core Ultra 200 CPU. Frankly, I'm tired of manufacturers trying to appeal to us size queens. Many of us actually prefer a smaller form factor. I'm just gonna say, Jake wrote that. Samsung is denying a report citing quality issues with its high bandwidth memory, or HBM, products. Last week, Reuters published a report claiming that Samsung's HBM chips failed NVIDIA's quality tests due to problems with heat and power consumption. Frankly, I'm just surprised NVIDIA has efficiency standards. I mean, this is a big deal because HBM is used mostly in AI applications to process the massive amount of data generated. Since NVIDIA holds about 80% of the global AI hardware market, it would be a massive hit to Samsung's reputation if this Reuters report is true. And it might be. Samsung said its newest HBM products work fine with many processors, but doesn't specifically say that those products work with NVIDIA's processors, leading to speculation that Samsung is simply trying to save face. That would be understandable since memory is the only Samsung silicon anyone really cares about. I mean, Google will apparently be moving manufacturing for the Tensor chips found in Pixel phones from Samsung to TSMC. Like Samsung's HBM products, the Tensor processors the company manufactures have had issues with thermals and power efficiency. Wait a second. But hold on, easy solution for Samsung. Just stop making everything you manufacture run hotter than the cast of Baywatch. So easy and simple, you should do it. Almost as easy and simple as comfort can be, thanks to our sponsor, Motion Gray. They offer ergonomic solutions at affordable prices so you can avoid breaking your back or the bank. So, their sit-to-stand desks come in a wide variety of models and sizes. They're simple to assemble and have a ton of available accessories, so you're sure to be able to pick out one to suit your needs. They also have a range of ergonomic chairs available, with each one focusing on adjustability, affordability, and providing maximum comfort. Check Motion Gray at the link below and use code Linus for 10% off your purchase. Hey, I had some extra news lying around, so I made you these quick bits. Okay, go on. Take them. ASUS has issued a second statement committing to improving their warranty and repairs process in response to customer backlash, in what kind of seems like an apology for the first apology it made 2 weeks ago in response to customer backlash. This time, the company got a lot more specific about its plans, mentioning video and photo documentation, accurate quotation, repairing instead of fully replacing specific components, leaving cosmetic damage unless asked to fix it, and overall, trying to not address customers dealing with broken hardware by making their lives even worse. It seems like it should be obvious, but here we are. ASUS has also taken another whack at its ROG Ally handheld, and right on the heels of a leak about the upgraded ROG Ally X, news about another Windows handheld was revealed to Windows Central. Lenovo's reportedly working on a Legion
I don't understand
Go
what you guys
Lite,
just did.
powered by an AMD Z1 series processor, just like the OG Go. Windows Central says the Go
just pushed the
Lite
team
will
to
feature
die?
some refinements, but
Almost at the
doesn't
edge of the
go
circle?
anywhere, leaving me no choice but to assume it will be covered in some kind of exotic silk.
190
But-
damage.
but you- But everyone died, and you
In
didn't
space news,
communicate that you were
Boeing's
going to go
long
fight
troubled
someone or say
Starliner
anything.
was
So
released
yeah, that's
on
why I
another
wasn't
circle,
there.
as NASA discovered both a helium leak and a design vulnerability
Okay.
that was in the space
Do you know what a
capsule's
Cryptos
propulsion
drone does?
system.
It scans and
Engineers have
shows
found a
where people
workaround
are.
for the
If you didn't
propulsion
see
Yeah,
it,
that's
it
why I
would
came
work.
running and threw all my grenades at them,
When
but by the time I
Starliner
was there, you
launches
guys
on
were
June
both dead.
1st.
You guys had the
That's
high
right.
ground on them. You
Because
You
you're
know what?
not.
I can
you're-
fix it.
okay?
Meanwhile,
Yeah, it's
SpaceX,
my fault. You're
who
right.
has been beating
The guy
Boeing
who's
for
alive's
years,
fault it is
may
always.
have faced a
guy
setback
that's
in
alive with
its
zero
next
damage, no
Starship
knocks.
launch after one of the company's Raptor 2
Or I
engines
could be like you and
literally
be dead, and the
exploded.
game could
Can't
be
say what you
over.
will about rocket
I wonder
fuels,
which
but
one
it's
I'm going to
kinda crazy
choose.
that Boeing can't even fail
I'll choose
as
no
good as
damage
SpaceX.
9 times out of
YouTube
10.
Music is rolling out a
You should
feature
go
on
play fucking
Android that will
Minecraft
allow
or
users to
something if
search
you
for
don't-
songs.
You
by
should go play
humming,
Minecraft because you don't know how to
or
shoot someone.
whistling them.
You think
Or
that
to
kill
get
death
back
ratio over.
and knocks
Dude,
it,
all you do is keep talking about damage. How cool is that? The reason you're talking about damage is because you're dead. The reason you're watching me play. You're the one crying. You're the one crying about damage. Okay, now you're muted. Goodbye. And now you're not getting... Oh my
bootleg
God,
Kyrgyzstani version of the Wiggles that somehow has more cumulative
Can't take
YouTube
that.
views than
Fucking
Taylor
children
Swift.
on this game.
This is gonna be a great journalistic tool.
Damage, 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 and then
Swiss
you're the
startup
crier.
called
You're the
Final
crier, not me who's
is
crying about
renting out
damage.
Online access to the world's first living processor. It's the Zerg. We made the Zerg. The service, called Neural Platform,
Let me know if they can hear me when
costs
they're muted, but I hope you
$500
can.
per month per user for access to a computer made of 16 human
I'm just gonna
brain
rat.
organoids.
Fuck these kids.
3D
Make
cell
them pissed off.
masses
I'm gonna go take a
of
shit. I'll
brain
just crouch
tissue.
and take a shit.
Okay. 36 universities are interested in Neural Platform access for biocomputing research, but the bioprocessor is only good for experiments lasting several months, since the organoids only live for 100 days. Do we bury them? Is there like a little cellular funeral? How do you handle this situation? What are we doing here? I've been making some version of this show for about 10 years, and things are getting weird, okay? And how will you handle coming back on Wednesday for more delightful tech news? I'm sorry, you have to come back. It is... Just say them, and then feel anxiety.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today's video is brought to you by Common Sense, which unfortunately isn't so common anymore. We're also bringing you a side sponsor as well, known as Objectivity, research, and bringing things...
Really?
political committee. Okay, well, then it turns out that
Who the fuck is Slick Thick Vic?
things up in good faith. This is something that the subject to today's video absolutely lacks. So if you're interested in common sense, go to www.thisisagoddamnjoke.com/SOG. All right, I'm sure somebody's going to buy that goddamn domain. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I was called out a few days ago by a YouTuber known as In Praise of Shadows, okay? A channel that covers horror history, reviews, and retrospectives. And while this was something that was a little bit unexpected, this is not a channel I've really seen. I've seen one of his videos pop up in a feed. Never really watched it because I don't really watch horror movie retrospectives. If you think what I watch is, oh, this is the kind of content that I look up, okay? Look up any old game from the 90s, space, type in retrospective. Find the longest video you can and just watch it the rest of the day. That's the content that I consume. Okay? That's literally what Mutahar watches. But of course, this is a guy that genuinely appears to make some pretty good objective videos about horror movies. His most recent video was Bad Conservative Horror Movies, where yours truly and friends of the channel, Wendigoon, Brendan Buckingham, so on and so forth, Bill got called out for promoting being associated with the bad people on the internet. And this is where I really feel like I was taken in the most bad faith representation possible. And I'm going to use this video to kind of make fun of this stupid shit and also address some serious misconceptions that really don't bother me at the end of the day, but enough for me to discuss it and kind of laugh at with the general community, okay? At the end of the day, I only care about my relationship to you, my fan base, okay? It is what it is. If you're somebody that hates me and clicks on these videos to say, Muta, you're a smelly poo boy, then honestly, I can't convince you, okay? Drop your comment for the engagement and I guess do what you have to. I don't really care. But again, ladies and gentlemen, it's fun to kind of laugh at these things.
Late landing.
And again, sort of like debunk a lot of the
Sorry, I was getting hot.
misrepresentations you find on the internet. Now, this guy's video, Bad Conservative Horror Movies, watch a little bit of his content and you can kind of understand his political ideologies and his leanings, mostly left-oriented. Not to say that there isn't bad conservative horror movies or bad conservative content sometimes. It doesn't really matter what your political spectrum is. No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you're all capable of making absolute dog water. For instance, Daily Wire Plus launched Mr. Bircham, okay? Meet Mr. Bircham, a no-nonsense woodshop teacher at odds with his gamer son, snowflake students, and the school's Jedi. Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer. Again, this is something Adam Carolla has been pitching for a while, and I watched a few clips of this, and man, let me tell you right now, okay, if goddamn Family Guy, actually Family Guy has always been kind of funny and has made edgy jokes, but the point is, if Family Guy and South Park still exist, dropping this thing, pile driving it into the ground, this is one of those shows where you watch a few snippets out of, and it's literally like written by like a 40-year-old who just wants to appeal to one specific crowd. It's really the wildest thing about politics, right? You got like the extreme left wing and the extreme right wing, and like all the majority is in like the center middle area, and we're all just like collectively grown at the cringe some of these people spit out in their entire camp. But again, to go back to our buddy Praise of Shadows, we made this video about conservative horror movies, and while this video is 2 hours and 45 minutes, it used to be an hour more, where it contained an entire piece on our buddy Wendigoon, primarily, but also I got strays, Oompaville got strays, Brandon got strays, Turkey Tom got strays, pretty much everyone got strays. This man delivered a bad faith representation, and it's time to actually debunk why it was bad faith. Now, I'm going to play one snippet from this video where he actually talks about Appalachia in a very wild sense, a area of the United States that covers about 18 actual states, okay? So let's actually listen to this banger.
Deep Appalachia is very white country, and for the most part, is exceptionally racist. Genuinely in this part of the country, you have to assume that any white person you meet is racist unless they show you otherwise.
Don't worry, buddy, I'm sure you're one of the good white guys out there, but this is one of those statements that I kind of wanted to talk about because honestly, it kind of paints a perspective of what this person's like, you know, view of the world really is. Now, I'm sure that obviously there is definitely racism in some deep parts of the United States. That's not a shocking thing for many people to consume. but to broadly paint nearly every white guy living out there really serves as a statement to further separate society. I guess maybe the equivalent statement could be like, hey, look, all those Indian guys in Toronto, yeah, 99% of those dudes are racist. Trust me, you really gotta dig through the Indians in Toronto to find the non-racist. I really feel like if anybody said that statement, it would immediately be they would immediately get destroyed out there, even regardless of whatever lived experience people have had. Now, obviously, this is a broad statement, and it's not done in the best faith possible, and this kind of a statement from this creator actually paints how he views creators of similar, areas. So Wendigoon being from that region, being with the race that he is, it starts to paint a seed in the actual user's head. When in reality, nobody should be making statements like this, and it honestly serves more as a divisive tool than something that brings us together. So when our comrade makes this exact segment where he talks about, people who are going to react to his exact segment, which is basically what he wanted, picking the whole fight, this is what he actually had to say. Watch this one.
Then let's see how they react to this video's existence, because I am certain they will be very level-headed about all of this.
Yeah, so far we have been pretty level-headed about this, okay? A lot of this whole discussion is debunking things rationally, okay? Instead of screaming over a microphone, yelling at each other, that's what piss babies do, okay? Let's actually debunk this and discuss this like actual grown adults. So, what is his reaction to, like, Wendigoon suddenly following him as he's, like, researching this hit piece? And I say research very lightly, which we'll get into.
Midst of this going on, a very funny thing happened, and that Wendigoon followed me on Twitter. I was not following him at the time. He never publicly told people to stop calling me a friend. He never once reached out to me privately, but he did follow me, which means in my eyes that he 100% knew what was happening because I did tweet about it several times, and then followed me to let me know that he knew, and that he was watching and that he intended to do nothing to stop it. Why else would he follow me in that exact moment?
Oh yeah, that totally makes perfect logical sense. Following you is a move of intimidation. Now, obviously, one of the principal allegations over here is this person received what they claim to be some hateful words, and a lot of that was being linked to Wendigoon's community or whatever. And here's the thing, you can't really link anybody to a certain community like that, because what people post on the internet is entirely of their own volition, and that's where it comes down to. To be somebody on the internet, you are going to receive any form of, like, harassment in general. It's not something that I condone or support, but it's just something that happens to everybody in reality. To pin and blame somebody for the actions of a totally, different person on the internet is a little bit childish, and it's something that, honestly, I feel is being used way too much. As somebody that also receives harassment over the internet as well, too, and maybe it's
my
just easier
teammates
for me
at?
too, maybe it's just different, but honestly, blocking, muting, or trying to not engage with these people really helps it die down. But again, that's just my experience, and I'd rather just throw that into the situation. Again, it's just blatantly putting the blame on Wendigoon when it really should be put onto the individual making disgusting threats or disgusting pieces, or saying disgusting things to you in general. That's not really Wendigoon's fault, it's just unfortunately an asshole on the internet. So in regarding me, alright, he ends up actually saying this.
He is friends with Umpaville, a gun-obsessed content creator that has taken advantage of Mikado Avocado's mental decline.
Bro, they have made content together, okay? To specifically pick, Umpaville for making videos about Nikocado Avocado, it's insane, alright? At the same camp, you can say that pretty much anybody in the commentary space, Moist Critical Me, anybody has taken advantage of Nikocado Avocado. Nikocado Avocado is a very, very, very intelligent content creator. They know exactly what they are doing, okay? At the end of the day, there is no taking advantage of it. And on this point, Nikocado Avocado, again, is a grown adult that can choose to make content with whoever they want to. To understand, when both these parties get together and make content, they understand that it is mutually beneficial for each other. So it's so weird that, like, now we've got this almost like fake faux outrage and this weird moral panic, when in reality these are two adults that decided to produce content with each other. What do you mean take advantage of this individual? You simply work together, make content, and both of you make money out of it. It is as simple as it comes out to. Why are we not allowed to actually make content with people because this individual perceives them to be incapable of deciding for themselves who they want to make content with? This is such a weird actual take to have, and I don't understand why they decided to go down this road, other than trying to pretend they care for this Nico Kato fellow, when in reality the situation is about as cut and dry, as adult-oriented as one could expect.
For fame and for money, and on top of that, has made content with the human trafficker, Andrew Tate.
So what about plenty of, like, news organizations that have actually brought him on and actually had interviews with him? Are they also responsible, or are you going to throw the actual idea of platforming and propagating alleged human trafficking in this situation? And I say alleged because the court cases are still ongoing. One of the weird things about the internet is basically just making statements of actual fact before things are supposed to be actual facts, okay? If you follow the legal system and you follow situations like this, it's one of the things that me, Oompa, and plenty of, like, the Nux and everyone on our podcast pretty much gets flack for when regards to this Andrew Tate subject. When we say alleged, it's because it is still alleged. Dog, we are waiting. Obviously, I have my own personal beliefs. I don't think Andrew's a squeaky clean individual, but being objective is actually being objective, okay? And it's saying things as they are, right? And of course, if Oompaville's guilty for it, have you ever actually watched the content that he makes and the discussions we have about this character on the podcast? The more and more we actually research on him, and research by reading through actual court documentation, other court cases that aren't in the public eye, we start to develop our own negative perception of this individual based on actual stuff that we have researched, not a Twitter, like, quote that we've read online, like some people have.
He is friends with Muda Hara, who argued against Andrew Tate being deplatformed from social media websites, and has recently showcased a great deal of transphobia in his most recent video.
Oh boy, that thumbnail's never gonna leave me! I'll tell you what, that's the best $120 I must have ever spent. You know, the same thumbnail that's basically made a caricature right here of that character Keppels that I actually ended up covering. Now, looking at this image over here, it is in fact just a disheveled, greasy individual, okay? And people have questioned, you know, why is this the only art that I've actually commissioned? I never really commissioned anything in the past. I decided to do it because of a recommendation from other creators and a quick turnaround time. I probably would have commissioned art for this goober in the video, but I honestly just didn't have the time to. But the other reality of it is, too, is like, even the person that I was talking about used this person's art. So clearly they didn't care about that artist's attachment to actual sites that they consider to be bad. Because if that was the case, if their principles were there, they would never have used that art in the first place. Insane stuff to understand and talk about. So again, I press this individual on the idea of, like, where is the transphobia that I was showcasing? Where is it? Is it in the room with us? Where is it? And again, that was a response over here. I was like, you know, back that claim up? What about painting me as a Tate fan when I clearly aren't? And in fact, this person's only response to this was, Mudahar, your art was transphobic. I have nothing else to say to that. You know, you could actually apply some basic level of research and probably dig through just a quick little crumb and say the artist that I used made posts on that actual Kiwi Farms website and probably would have used that against me, even though I've already discussed this. See, this is the problem with this kind of stuff. Even their owns don't have any form of research to assist in their own. And of course, this is one of those things where he's like, I have argued against, like, deplatforming Tate. Now, I want to kind of address this because it is a point that kind of sticks around. This was the actual post that I had made, I want to say, in 2022, where I said, banning Andrew Tate is dumb, ideas should be challenged, spreads misinformation, it should be countered in the public sphere. Yeah. I really think, and maybe this is idealistic of me, but I really do believe that when talking about, you know, individuals on the internet, whether they be Tate, whether they be Sneeko, whether they be all these characters, deplatforming, I think, always strengthens a lot of their core base.
Hireo says, 26 damage. Hireo says, no wonder.
Like the Matrix and whatnot to basically say that there are people oppressing them, when in reality they just have really shitty ideas that in the grand scheme of things, when you actually are countering them, like Charlie's made videos on Sneeko, I've made videos on Sneeko where we collectively
Scrappy DP says, you died first. Figure it out.
How to shift gears in a manual
That's why you yapping
vehicle.
Instead.
And of course, plenty of other people have laughed at individuals, especially people like Tate. I really think that discussing these things instead of outright banning might actually be for the better. Now, obviously, this is a
Hireo says,
really brought up
dude, you have 26
and it's one of
damage.
those things that is a gross mischaracterization of where my stance is. This guy is basically
Scrappy DP says, not the first mad kid
podcast.
podcast.
Doesn't do in all of his videos, it seems, is actually research. So this is my YouTube channel, and you see this little search button right over here? You click that, you type in the words Andrew Tate, alright, real quick, hit enter, and whoa, look at that, boys, I got a few big videos. They're not small, 1.9 million views, 750,000.
Scrappy DP says, get over your damage and KD, you were more damaged and dead.
Tates and a lot of his friends as actual proper scumbags. Yeah, I take shit from every side, okay? Whether it's the most left-leaning or the rightoids or whatever. And it's literally because for actual objectivity,
Hireo says, we were fighting a whole team, the three of us.
Logical conclusion.
Hireo says,
videos on my
and you
channel
leave.
in this fashion is me presenting actual facts, actual evidence, and a lot of the conclusion is something that comes up to the average person.
Hireo says, I think you have brain damage.
And in such a fashion that
Scrappy DP says, you left when you folded up.
Which is that these people are scumbags. When discussing characters like Sneeko with 1.5 million views, objectively breaking down this guy's stupid thoughts and brain-dead logic in 31 minutes, I think does more than just simply saying this person's bad. Because all they have to do is quote tweet you and shit on you, and their side wins, your side. Nobody actually learns anything, okay? Whereas I make videos in a fashion where these people usually will not watch my entire video on their channel or even attempt to at all. Because if their audience could see their contradictions and hypocrisy happen live in front of them, then they would immediately be clowned. That's how you produce videos and how you make, I guess, quote unquote, a hit piece in this situation. Something that this individual failed to actually do. So one of the interesting things to talk about, but where it gets really dangerous is when this person actually makes a really, really serious claim against another creator that has been on the show. A creator that some of you might know as Brandon Buckingham.
He is friends with Brandon Buckingham, a gun YouTuber who has been accused of threatening rape.
So this is a situation where it's so actually hilarious, right? He says that Brandon Buckingham is a gun tuber, which is so far from the course. The only thing that I've seen Brandon talk about with guns is when he went out to the ranch with Brandon Herrera and Donut Operator. The actual accusation of accused of threatening rape is actually something that I talked about in my video in regards to Brandon Buckingham and Sneeko. Now, while Sneeko likes to take it to the streets and whip his little Glock around thinking that he's hard, anytime YouTubers actually want to challenge Sneeko to a fight, for instance, like Brandon Buckingham, who fits his weight class exactly, actually matches his viewership and popularity, would absolutely, I would bet money on Brandon winning, could challenge him to a fight. Sneeko decides to back out and make jokes at home. But one thing that's interesting is Sneeko, without any form of critical thought, is also somebody that spreads around false allegations. Sneeko showcases a message sent to him by Brandon Buckingham. So obviously, to clarify, Sneeko has not signed to box. He has refused to fight because I'm on his dick. What a pitiful excuse. Your main channel is literally dying, and you desperately cling to this alpha male red pill persona that is completely fabricated. I used to rock with and support these two, but on God, it's fuck him from now on. I'll be in NYC in July, Nico. Come watch me lick shots on your busted girl. Whole gang is gonna run the train on her like she asked us to last time I was in town. I know you love controversy and beef. How do you like this pressure? Now, of course, anybody could read that and just say, bro, the boys and I are gonna come gangbang your girl. Obviously, when he's saying shit like she asked us to last time I was in town, his joke implies explicit consent at this point. Now, of course, Sneeko decides to be so butthurt about this, he actually spreads really harmful false allegations. Listen closely.
Yo, you know who's an L-Mans? Brandon Buckingham.
Oh, yeah.
That guy sucks. I'm gonna bro, literally said, I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend. Yeah. Literally said that. This dude said he is going to R-word my girlfriend. Bro, nothing warrants saying I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend.
Now again, one look at our buddy Praise of Shadows probably enlightens you to understand this guy might be ideologically opposed to Sneeko in general, but not ideologically opposed to take a false actual representation, a bad faith representation, and promote that as it was actual reality, dude. I mean, come on now. That is without a doubt. It took 5 minutes of fucking research, okay? Even when I was doing it, it took like 5 minutes to get those clips together. Find the fucking contradiction and laugh at it. So again, one of the things looking further into it is obviously, this person clearly has had a bad time on YouTube. So I want to just bring up the ultimate contradiction. He's represented me, Wendigoon, Brandon in bad faith amongst plenty of people. So I'm going to look at what this person actually had to deal with on the internet himself. And 47 minutes into his bad conservative horror movies was this goddamn line drop.
I normally have a rule for myself of refusing to engage in purposefully combative comments, but this one made me really mad. And I said back to them, I can assure you that I have never done that. That accusation is disgusting to me, and putting those words in my mouth is in extremely bad faith. To which she said, I wouldn't make that accusation if it...
Another wee pick me up. "10 seconds, the ring's just ahead."
It wasn't something you have done. Either way, you sadly became full of yourself, mourning over your poor artist's soul and drowning in self-pity.
Dogs.
Switch to Chrome to help protect yourself from malware.
I was like, what? What?
What a joke, Google. Oh man. Anyways, though, stating corruption aside, yeah, this person was accused of a bad comment, and it wasn't something that wasn't good faith. It was clearly somebody who was, you know, in the same situation. Apparently, somebody took his words out of context, like he took my Tate mention out of context, and didn't even bother to attribute to the fact that I actually spoke out against the person that he also hates as well, it seems. And yeah, represented me in bad faith. And what did it cost him? Well, let's go dive in a little bit.
A man had posted, I'm just here to see how long it takes him to whine about the racist patriarchy. To which someone else said, if you dislike his videos so much, why do you watch and comment on them instead of watching something you actually enjoy? To which he said in return, 'cause I'm a dick. This meme of an idea has directly impacted my work, my sense of self, and the videos that I'm able to make. And I don't really think that that's fair. There was a month last year where I only made $500 in ad revenue. I can't live off that. The amount of times that I've almost had to stop making videos since then has been almost painful. I've barely been able to keep this afloat. I've paid my rent late most months for the past year. The cruel and untrue things that you say
That's
about
your
another
problem.
person do in fact have direct impacts on them and the way that people culturally see them. It's why I've put...
What?
Now look, all jokes aside, listen, obviously it is kind of a shame, right? Like the things that people say about you can cost you sponsorships, viewership, advertisement revenue, where there's consequences to people spreading misinformation about you? Wow, I wouldn't have thought. So his response to
Holy shit, they're coming.
what happened to him is to just do that to other people. Like, wait, hold on a minute. And the other thing about, like, oh, I didn't make enough money to make this worthwhile. Oh, people aren't signing up for Patreon. Then maybe it's up to you to make more engaging content and bring more people in. I always hate it when these people are like, oh, man, I can't turn YouTube into a full-time job. YouTube's never meant to be a fucking full-time job, okay? It's lucky if it's a full-time job, but never put your eggs into this basket. Get a goddamn job, okay? I have a job at this day and age, all right? You know why? Because it's more secure and safe. But anyways, this isn't a job rant. This is actually more looking into this person, all right? They don't like bad faith, but they absolutely operate in bad faith, all right? It actually impacted them, and yet they do the same thing to other people. It's insane. And again, look, at the end of the day, it would be one thing if they actually had real cogent arguments, but in reality, they don't. And here they actually kind of admit here. So in this entire diatribe, they write, a thread about the last few days. Many people have said very fair criticism of me and my work, that I did not appropriately portray people, and I would like to address that. To Brandon, I do need to apologize to you for two things. The first,
me?
you are right. It is wrong for me to use that picture. I included it to show
you
that
talking-
Wendigoon had
you
a
took off.
closeness.
Everything
There
okay?
are other pictures I could have used. For that,
Oh,
I'm
well, I
genuinely
don't
sorry.
know. My
The
two
second,
teammates
I did
were
not do my
dying,
due
so I
diligence
figured
when
I'd
looking
try
at
and live and go
allegations
craft them
against you.
somewhere.
But you fucking repeated
Rather
them!
than die and
You
then end the
repeated
game for
him
all of
not
us.
being threatening the
What do
armor.
you
Like,
think?
what is going on here?
Copy that, dude.
You know,
Copy
here's
that.
the thing. Back when I, had my spat with Ethan Klein about the donation shaming, in retrospect, looking into it, it's like the most nothing burger thing in comparison to propagating actual allegations like this. What the allegation that he promoted, the idea of threatening, that whole R-word stuff,
So now I need
that
to
can
find a fucking
actually
craft
ruin
machine.
not just Brandon's channel, but possibly his social connections outside of YouTube. Imagine if a family member, like your parent, your sister, your brother, heard that about you, okay?
God
The way they
damn
would
it!
perceive you would be forever shattered and diverged no matter what. This guy chooses to just run that allegation without doing the genuine 5 minutes of
Pursuers
research.
like a rat.
I had less
where I
than 3
belong.
minutes of my Sneeko video you could have watched that would have actually explained the situation, but instead he guns with it, which shows you that the kind of
Ooh, let me get
content
this
that this
tower.
person
Maybe I can just
produces
tower in.
probably shouldn't be trusted.
What do you think
Anytime
about
this guy
that?
makes a hit
That'll
piece,
work?
it's probably so poorly
that a
researched
dangerous
that trusting
idea or the
anything
good
he
idea?
says is unreliable. And it's kind of a shame because I genuinely can see a good content creator, but he's
Great
actually
feedback,
ruined
great
himself,
feedback. Love
at least publicly. People have first impressions, okay? First impressions are everything. As much as I love to give a second chance, watching anything this guy does in the future is actually dangerous. And I think the kind of
Who's
content and the
texting
kind
me?
of stuff that he promotes in terms of allegations like this is a real problem with YouTube. If you're going to make serious claims like this, you absolutely better have evidence. Otherwise, it really should be a TOS against you in a sense as well. But ultimately, going down into it, he says, ultimately, I did not feel
Damn,
that it
that's
was
just
worth my
technically
time. Like,
in?
he felt that he was worth your time enough to comment on in a video. Like, seriously, have some actual level of apologies to offer. This is not an apology. This is, I'm sorry, I'm a fucking idiot and I got caught.
Okay, I'm gonna
he
get you up,
said,
but they're probably
"You're
gonna be
using
seen when you get
homophobic
out of
language
this."
to me, calling me a low testosterone freak
remember
does not
this.
change my opinion about
Okay,
you.
gentlemen.
Again, I have no idea how low
Ladies,
testosterone
gentlemen,
is
boys and
homophobic in
girls,
any
children
sense.
of all
Like, if you ever
ages,
went to
you're
a
about to
gym and
get
seen gay dudes
revived
work out,
here.
bros are hella filled with goddamn fucking testosterone. You ever seen them bodies? The best, the most physically adept people you'll find at a goddamn gym, I'll just say, pretty much, okay? Without getting... Actually, I'm getting kind of hot, goddamn. Anyways, to Mutahar, your thumbnail art was transphobic. I have nothing else to say. We've already covered this. Again, doesn't choose to jump in. I even gave him an extra bit of, like, ammunition against me. I didn't even decide to go down that. I always try my best. I dropped the ball here in how I presented this. My heart was in the right place. I try to live my life with integrity. If you've watched me for a long time, I hope you know this. I will always believe in trying to do the right thing and standing up to things I do not believe in.
Why don't we go back
And this
there
is
and
just
look?
a diatribe of nonsense. Mentally, I've grown very tired of conservatives picking apart my work for 2 years. I am worn down. I let my emotions get the best of me here. No, I really think reading the term conservative here already just puts into place. I would say that most of the people on this list, alright, not all, but most, I would say, me included, are definitely not in the pile of conservatives, so to
Right,
speak,
well, I'm not
okay?
going that way,
If you ever
just so you
watched
know.
my content and given me more of a fair shake, like I've actually tried to do here for this individual, then you would realize that I'm actually quite on the center leftist side of things. I've taken a lot of batterings from people anytime my personal viewpoints have ever showed up in videos amongst the most extreme ends of both sides of these spectrums. But in reality, I'm willing to take punches if it means I can promote who I actually am versus a caricature of me on the internet that only panders to one extreme side or the other. It really seems like the brain in this person's mind, the brain in this person's body, is pretty much warped by the ideas of politics and infighting and team sports that unfortunately are what politics are these days. Nowadays, it seems like the people that are always trying to make a point and hit pieces when they're in these political camps care more about, you know, pushing their narrative versus about what is actually an objective fact and what isn't. And it's why bad faith representations of individuals have become so common in a lot of these spheres. Whether you're on that extreme right-wing side of people painting the leftists as the extreme bad individuals that I guess they claim they are, and using the worst cherry-picked examples of them, alongside the left-wing who use the worst cherry-picked examples of anybody that is slightly right to them as bad people, these are all things that necessarily don't amount to bringing anybody together. In fact, if anything, it's more of a divisive aspect of human society that unfortunately seems to be growing in today's day and age. Look, at the end of the day, alright, this guy, I really hope the best for him, and I really wish the best, and I really hope that his channel takes the uptick and he's able to actually pay rent on time and make the content that he wants to. But if you're going to make hit pieces like this is a really, really bad trend in these kind of people who make content and actually promote the worst bad faith examples. Because what effectively happened to him and ruined his life, quote unquote, he's basically doing to the people around him. And it is, of course, I'm going to make a response, at least for me, in regards to my bad faith representation in this situation, because I feel like I have to. I don't like these kind of things that are being said about me, especially when they aren't true. Nobody is. And I have a platform to at least counter and rebuttal and offer my actual perspective to it, which is what I'm going to do. But ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and honestly, I wish the best for Praise of Shadows, as I wish the best for anybody in life. There's very few people that I have an actual genuine problem with. Those people are usually on the criminal side of things. I think that this guy could absolutely have a turnaround, and I really hope that he takes some time to sit back, relax, and understand that the people that he's mischaracterizing aren't really enemies in the first place. And if his whole goal was to pick a fight and basically try to make us look like the worst people imaginable, well, his bad faith representations just gave everyone that he's against the most ammunition that, anybody could dream of. That being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it,
We also have Moist Critical.
Yeah, why don't we do that, since it is our main headline and thumbnail, and then we'll hit the fishbowl.
Okay, so as you guys know, I've had an ongoing one-sided beef with Charlie, also more popularly known as Moist Critical. He's a huge commentary streamer creator with a great big loyal audience, and it's got back to him that that he's a cookie soundbite. Go ahead, Zach. That one.
It's cool to be a soundbite, I suppose. It's about the cookies that Pokey was selling.
No, not that one. The one he's referring to.
Have to factor in that the bags aren't even big to begin with. It's 4 ounces per bag. 4 ounces of cookies for $7 is still a lot, especially when you compare it to the product that they're basing it off of and supposedly approved upon. Those were $10 a bag for 14 ounces. They offered you 10 ounces more of product.
14
and
ounces.
They were sold in Costco. A lot of people really enjoyed them, but most
I mean, he's
people
cooking.
didn't like the price. That was a pain point of that.
This dude's doing straight up calculus
So
right now.
$7 for a smaller bag of cookies, significantly smaller, is a lot too. Like,
So at any rate, I find, I want to make it clear. Let's watch what he said, and then I want to clear everything up here for dear Charles.
Where are you shooting at?
I know Ethan hates me now. I don't really know why, but yeah.
Oh no.
I know,
Cool to
it
be a
makes me
soundbite,
feel
I
bad.
suppose. It's about the cookies that Pokey was selling. What, the soundbite? I don't see where that would
We
be
got people on top of us.
normal soundbites, but I guess I don't know which part of it.
No, dude, it's really a good one. It's one of my favorites at the moment.
Such a good song.
And let me put it this way, Charlie. First of all, I don't hate you. We've crossed paths many times in our careers, and I respect you, what you've done, and I think you're a good dude. And also, you weren't wrong about what you said.
You gotta
about
make an
Pokey
attempt to try to
calling
get me,
people
brother.
poor. That,
Yeah, get
I
in
agree,
here.
was out of hand. The part that just cracks me up is just the description, the analysis of the cookie price, and it is tremendous, and I mean that with all respect. It's one man doing a calculus on a cookie, and I appreciate that. It's all love.
I was surprised that was such a controversial take. I felt like that was something Ethan would completely agree with. Like,
I
that's
did.
something I've been consistent about from the very beginning. I've always made fun of people that, like, financially shame someone else, even if it's...
I do agree with him on that point, and that's his thing. It's just the cookie analysis that I was, and I'm not even criticizing. I'm not even saying you're wrong. They are very expensive cookies, you know.
all
It's just,
roads lead to this being an expensive product.
all
That's the brass
roads.
tacks of it. That is the hard pill to
all
swallow.
roads lead to the overwhelming conclusion that this cookie is too expensive. That's
Us the 5, we at least.
Ethan hates me
Us.
I don't hate you, Charlie, and
I know Ethan
that makes
hates me
me
now.
sad to hear that.
Cool to be a soundbite, I suppose.
Tripping puss.
It is cool.
I think it's I really love his, and I think supporters need to create support supporters. People support other people.
Right.
If it is just like injustice. I don't know why that was ever such a big issue. Did it for Rice Gum, everyone, XQC, that Josh Franklin guy for fucking years.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think he's just probably hasn't watched
Look
it,
like me
which is
somewhere.
okay. I don't blame him for that. I don't generally seek out people goofing on me. You know, it hurts my feelings. I'm sensitive.
I don't know why that was ever such a big issue.
Might be safe here, but I'm gonna try.
Right. Now, that wasn't the issue. The top comment
I am
said it
safe.
did. It wasn't an issue. Charlie ranting about cookie prices is just fucking
But I'm
fun.
about
It
to
is.
die.
Yeah. But again,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm dead.
assuming he didn't actually hear the sound.
Right.
I hope that he would listen to it so he knows. And I'll be honest. When we're talking about Charlie, it's just silly. it's part of my hater ass bitch persona. But you should know that there's a vast number of people in our audience that are Charlie evangelists, and they love Moist Critical. In fact,
I know Ethan hates me now.
that's not true, man, and it makes me sad to hear that. Let's do a poll, just because I want Charlie to see this and know that it's all love from the H3 Army. Do you
fuck with me Friday.
Yeah, would you say do we fuck? FW fuck with Charlie?
Do you fuck with Charlie?
Just FW, because I want to be bolder right
I'm voting yeah, I fucks with him.
See, he understands, you know. I don't have to prime my audience when I mention you. Do you?
The brass tacks of it. That is a hard pill to swallow.
I'm getting a huge turnout in Charlie's favor at the moment here. Almost 70% is coming in favor. They're saying, we F with Charles.
Charles.
And we co-signed the cookie analysis. Very good.
Is really some out of touch shit. And the really foul part about all of this that my little noodle will never be able to wrap itself around. Bub, you need them, and you are dropping trouser and shitting in their mouth right now by just insulting
Well,
them.
to be fair, people would pay
that's
for
really about
Poke
it.
to shit in their mouth probably, but not necessarily. That's a bonus, I think, in her case.
Cool to be a soundbite, I suppose.
For her fans. But I hope you don't. Yeah, I hope you know we don't hate you, Charlie. In fact, we love you. 70% of us love you. Only 30% of us hate you, which is pretty good ratio.
Yeah, definitely.
30%, and you guys get your shit together. Be nice. You know what I mean?
And those 30%, I'm sure a lot of them maybe just don't watch his content.
Right.
They don't fuck with
Yeah,
him.
that's
Not that
okay.
they don't like
really
him.
know why, but yeah.
You don't have to F with everybody.
Don't really know why. But yeah.
I hope that I've explained that it's all love.
I'm the jump
Okay.
master.
Don't
Don't
what?
be afraid.
I was
Just
surprised that that
close
was
your
such a
eyes
controversial
and
take.
lean in.
One more time about the cookies for the final analysis.
Like, $28.
Take care when you
no matter
approach
how
me.
you
Let me break this
I'm
down.
in a class of my own.
28
it's
bucks.
$7 a bag,
Yeah.
and that's still expensive. But then you also have to.
I'm the
factor
jump
in that
master
the
again?
bags aren't even big to begin with. It's
Small
4
bags.
ounces per bag. 4
What?
ounces of cookies
Not a
for
lot.
$7 is still a lot, especially when you compare it to the product that they're basing it off of and supposedly improved upon. Those were $10 a bag for 14 ounces.
Okay, they're
They
expensive.
offer
I get it.
product. And they were sold in Costco.
No, I already agree. You don't have to keep going.
Most people didn't like the price. That was a pain point of that. $10 for a bag of
Yeah,
cookies is a
dude, I
lot.
know.
So
They're expensive
$7
cookies.
for a
What do you-
smaller bag of cookies, significantly smaller, is a lot too. Like,
Can we move on,
it doesn't
Charlie?
matter how you boil down this matter. All roads lead to this being an expensive
Yeah,
product.
all
That's
roads.
the brass tacks of it. That is the hard pill to swallow.
So you see what I do? I do this play, and it's very fun. It's very fun.
It's really fun.
It's an honor.
You know what
Charlie.
I'm noticing though? I'm really picking up on that Charlie has some elements of hater ass bitch, and that's kind of the root of this. And you yourself being a hater ass bitch, maybe that is where the bridge foundation. Yeah.
What is he a hater ass bitch about? Just because he's critical?
He's moist critical.
He does.
I hope I'm
Well,
not
just like, you know,
someone's
Yeah, he's a
harping on all the
critic.
details.
He's hating on the cookies.
I'm just saying it's something.
He was extremely wet.
Something that.
Tamanfo says, fuck.
Maybe we could build on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Charlie, if there's anything I can do,
You can find things that you both hate
We can make our way.
and hate on them together.
I hate expensive cookies.
heavy knife for you guys?
You do?
I fucking hate expensive cookies.
Oh,
I know
okay.
Ethan hates me now.
No, I hate the cookie. I love
Don't
you.
really know why, but yeah.
Anyway, just a little clickbait. Not a big deal.
Kinda forgot.
I
I know Ethan
apologize.
hates me
I
now.
do.
I don't
Sorry,
really know
just
why, but yeah.
Stood on there
That's the-
forever.
Are you guys talking?
Oh yeah, no stress.
Extra munitions for you in Greats.
Oh, my bad. I'm watching a video. I couldn't tell who the fuck that was. Please forgive me for my swearing. I don't mean to offend you.
Come see the merchandise. Hop up here. Boosted loader. Attention. Delivering care package.
Looks like a care package is coming in. Big.
My favorite kind of loot. The kind that's all mine.
I'm looking for like a Havoc if y'all see one.
Okay, sounds good. There's not one in the shop, so I'll ping one if I see it.
Where'd my gun go?
Also, I have your delivery.
Right here. Leather 2.
Special delivery.
Beautiful. Extended heavy mag here. Level 3.
What are you delivering to me?
Right in here. Got us a treasure pack here.
Am I talking to myself? Hey, Miss Sigma, where you going?
What the fuck?
What just happened? That happened?
Just killed me.
What the I'm sorry.
killed you?
I killed her. I didn't mean
No,
to.
you're good.
I don't know how that. I didn't know how that worked. I didn't even mean to. I just tried to jump. Oh my! I don't.
Here, I have a respawn beacon.
I've never seen that before. You want to do a respawn there? Then yeah,
Me
do it.
either.
She jumped onto the door and I opened the door and then she got trapped inside of it. I guess. I never seen that. I don't know that works. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't even mean to open the door. I just must have pressed E as I was mantling. She mantled and like at the edge of the door opened and literally just throttled her. The fuck?
Thank you.
I ain't never seen something like that. Here, you can kill me. I'm sitting on it. You can open the door and kill me back.
So many treasures behind.
Oh, it just dropped me. What happened to you?
Not sure, but we
She
figured
must
it
be
out.
fragile. Does that mean you come back with actually more shit though, technically? Because now you got 2 extra shields?
Yeah,
Team
I've
down here.
guns.
Team.
Oh, well then you're welcome. What's
There's
up in
people over
here?
here.
Are they on top? Oh shit! What the absolute... Bro, I had to back off because as I was running down, I was getting absolutely throttled. Coming back.
Jump drive in position.
Come and get your birthday present.
Recharging shields.
Yep, they're down there. They moved across.
Frag out.
Thermite out.
Loving a frag. They're shooting at me.
They're coming on top of you? I almost broke one.
I'm down. No one hides from my drill.
They're pushing.
Target here. Target here.
Oh my god, I don't know where they're shooting. Oh, he's still up there? I couldn't tell what. There's one still up on the ledge. Just get out of here.
Leave and see if I can craft.
Yeah, run. I got a clown on me. What kind of face is that?
There's a whole crafting station over here too.
That character wears more makeup than Trisha Paytas.
There's a team here.
Yeah, there's a team inside of there. I would get up top or get around. He's out! Down and to the left and down and out. Slide and grow, run and bro. What the fuck? You're not moving fast. Gotta move faster than that, Jack. Don't worry about that. What you doing? You're going back? Are you insane? This is a dangerous move, sir.
Watch.
She likes it. Yeah, I'm running too probably. I'm like, I don't think this is good. But, oh, they're coming out. Yeah, they're coming out. They're coming out after us. They're coming out.
I'm making my way to the next respawn beacon.
I could leave so many treasures behind.
Believe in y'all.
I'm dead. I'll hold them off. I tried to hold them off for as much as I could. I could never get out there. I was dead from the start.
Oi, replicator there, and it's still got the goods.
Just keep moving. Let that other team come down to the third party. Getting your athletic workout.
Backpack here, level 2. Yeah, nah, the ultimate backpack here, level 2. Care package on its way, sweet as.
Putting on the yoga pants and doing work.
Champion's captain. Enjoy Darwinism in action, mate.
A dragon. All caged up. What you doing? Where you going? You're gonna die. Where's he going? What is this move? Are you insane? Bro.
I have 4 medkits, I'm fine.
I don't like it. I think it's unnecessary. You still gotta weave through the frickin' thing to get out, so.
Replicators coming in.
Go up, go up, go up, go up to your right. Instead of going to that. Oh, wait, you killed her? Damn, Miss Alpha. Bad.
Oh my god, I want that.
She a bad girl. She got that JoJo Siwa on repeat.
Light ammo here. There, go. All right.
I saw a team on it, but I think they're gone now.
Are you guys not internet kids?
What do you mean, internet kids?
Replicator there, and it's still got the goods. Yes. Rings moving, and we don't seem to be.
You know, kids familiar with the internet that do that memeing stuff and all that. Familiar with the internet culture and. Are they up top? Are they up top on the zip line or no? Hello?
Fuck.
There's nothing I could do.
What's the problem with this show? It's just everybody
Maybe
catches
soundbite.
strays here. You know,
You
people-
unmuted your tab on your computer. What, the soundbite?
Oh, what? This?
Yeah, that's, you need to mute that. Yeah, cool.
It worked?
Yeah.
Mute site. All right. I apologize. It made me feel bad when you said that. So, just know, I'm here.
Someone in the chat said you both hate the 14 pages guy.
One more time.
You both hate the 14 pages guy?
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
It's
Yeah.
14
That's what somebody in the chat
pages.
says. Yeah. So.
And
you, maybe that's the bridge.
If you want to talk about sound bites, someone sent Charlie
Oh yeah, right.
a video that's crying about the sound bites. That shit's funny.
14-page,
I-
meticulously argued document.
I'd love to collab on goofing on 14 pages, guys.
Mighty Mouse says Charlie and Ethan are twin haters, but Charlie's a professional yapper. I mean, some may think.
I talked for 3.5 hours.
He's kind of a yapper.
Yeah.
No, I
He's
know.
been yapping.
Sometimes.
Ethan says a lot more though. I feel like, and you don't. You get to the point.
I don't. I have opinions.
It's a good thing. I mean, some people I know they like Charlie stretching out a sentence, but.
What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about cookies that are made. They must be spun from silver of Rumpelstiltskins because the price of them is to make you want to eat your own fucking feces. And it's fun to do the impression because
it is fun.
You're a big character and you have a big personality, and we're just having fun here. Thank you, Sammy, by the way, for the 10 gifts. That's tremendous. Thank you. It is kind of funny how
Life of SKKYZ
the sound
says,
bites on this show
Scrappy fan?
have become such a prominent character. Like, creators know about it, and they're kind of afraid of becoming a soundbite.
Yeah.
Scrappy DP says, you're a fan of me?
Dark Viper had a full mental breakdown over it.
14.
And it wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, chill, dude.
Life of SKKYZ says, not the real Scrappy.
Great
Life of
soundbite.
SKKYZ
Great
says,
work.
sold.
Handled it. Yeah.
I feel like the soundbite was like the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now he has sound bites of you.
There you go. And I'm very happy. I love that. I gotta stop eating.
Scrappy DP says, I've been the real Scrappy since 1997, buddy.
I didn't eat today.
You guys like my Charlie impression? I see people saying it's good.
Scrappy DP says, I am the Og.
I'm gonna need to hear it.
Let me think. What's up, guys? Today we're gonna be watching a video of a dude shitting in his own mouth in a tub and then getting up and going to his neighbor's house and putting his poop in his mailbox. That's actually that's what it will make
Life
you
of
feel like.
SKKYZ says, Scrappy is an Apex streamer I expect to carry if you are the... Life of SKKYZ says, real one. Scrappy DP says,
A new
I came
and
before him.
horrifying study of 23 male cadavers found microplastics in every
Scrappy
single one of their
DP
testicles.
says, he is the copy.
I don't know why they specifically investigated the testes, but that's what the scientists did for this study. And what they
Life
found
of
was,
SKKYZ
microplastics
says,
in every
he made
single
your name.
one's testicles. So the study, which was conducted at the University of New Mexico, wasn't just limited
Scrappy
to
DP
human
says,
testicles, though.
same way
the
my
new
logo
study
is the
compared
real Og
the
and Banks
levels
copied
of
it.
12 different types of plastics in those testicles,
Scrappy
with
DP
plastics
says,
found
he
in
did not make my
47
name.
dog testes. So not
Stop
only
saying
do
the word testicles, please. It's just too much. You've done it like 12 times. It's too much.
Scrappy DP
Okay,
says,
let me
I
think
made
of
my name is
synonyms.
Splatterball in the late 90s.
male sacs.
Go back to testicles,
Scrappy
please.
DP says,
Please.
the dog pound
All right,
made
good,
my name.
Good. Okay. So toxicologist Matthew Campen, who's the co-author of the study, says this: the levels of microplastic microplastic shards, which sounds so painful, and
Life
types of
of
plastics in
SKKYZ
human
says,
testes
wipe
were
your
3
mouth,
times
JKJK.
greater than those found in dogs.
Scrappy DP
And the
says,
dogs
technically
are
Jaybird
eating
named
off
me.
the floor. So it really puts in perspective of what we're putting in our own bodies. Also keep in mind that the amount of microplastics multiplies
Why are we doing the keyboard
tenfold
warrior shit
if
typing like that?
the human male also happens to be a dog. John, take it away.
And if he eats off the floor. Also, speak for yourself, doctor. Anna's dog Charlie does not eat off the floor. He eats out of a
Never.
crystal dish.
Right.
Yeah, I love first of all, why are you throwing dogs under the bus? And why are you implying that that's how the plastics are getting into our body? That we're like eating chunks of it? That's not how it works. It's not shards like that. It's tiny little bits, which I'm sure are still very damaging, but it's ambient. It's in the water. It's in all of that. Like, I think that makes people not sure about that. So look, I'm glad that this reporting has come out.
Can't craft
I'm
yet,
sure
buddy.
it is way
You gotta wait
too
for him to
late
fully
socially
die.
to do anything about this. But
Yeah, that's
obviously
what I'm
there are
doing.
concerns about the long-term impact on health, particularly reproductive health.
He's
when it
like
comes
way
to this.
across, so
And it's
we're,
a sort
you're
of area, I
safe.
know you often talk about
You
like
just gotta get
you know
them to
wanting to
die.
find common ground with
Then
people
we're
that
going
we
left.
disagree
We're going
with
to this
on
thing.
things. Like this is the sort of thing that in
Actually, no,
theory,
you
we
get
should
him.
be
Yeah,
able
get him now.
find
Get him
common
now. Get him,
ground
get him,
with,
get him,
like,
get him,
the
get him. I'll
Joneses
get him
and all
up,
that.
and then we're
'Cause
going to
they
the
love
jump
talking
tower.
about reproductive health and testosterone levels and, you know, sperm levels and everything. But the issue is that if you take this seriously and you try to track down how it happened, you inevitably are going to discover that corporations are responsible.
Looks like I've
And
already
that is a path
done
they will
something
never
for you,
walk
huh,
down.
buddy?
Maybe if it's like a shady Jewish billionaire or something. It has to be something vague.
Mr. Overconfident.
It can't be anything that will result in us having to regulate corporations to stop having them poisoning our air, water, and soil.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between Republican politicians and the average Republican voter. Because, you know, I remember when Trump
I gotta drop.
privatized
Don't go.
some of the
I gotta drop.
federal lands, or actually what he did was he allowed for fossil fuel companies to start drilling on public lands. A lot of Republican voters were actually furious about that because, believe it or not, they really appreciate public lands as well. They like to go hunting, they like to go camping, they're very outdoorsy. So there is common ground, and it's really about
We got to go all the way
breaking
over
through or
artillery.
piercing through some of
We're not
the
going to make
media
it all the
filter
way, but
bubbles that I believe withholds this kind of information
we
or
can
this
get to
kind of
this next
reporting
one.
from, you know, the other side of the political aisle. And by the way, vice versa. Like there are certain stories that I think that we miss because of these filter bubbles, and so it's important to have a healthy, diverse media diet. Yada yada. We don't have to get into that right now. But yes, John, you're also correct. Look, I don't want anyone to think like, no, there's literal shards of plastic in men's testicles. That's not what they found. They're literally called microplastics. And so it's basically due to the food and water that we consume. And I want to talk a little bit about, you know, there's a lot we don't know about how this is impacting our health, but there's a lot that we do know as well. And I want to share some of what we know. So according to the reporting, the scientists know that certain chemicals inside plastic disrupt our hormones. Chemicals like BPA are colloquially known as hormone disrupting chemicals, and plastic makers are developing new ones all the time. In addition to these specific chemicals that are used to make a plastic, there are also, or there may also be physical issues to worry about with plastic ingestion. In March, a New England Journal of Medicine study even suggested microplastics lodged into blood vessels in our necks might be playing a role in heart attack and stroke risks. So, you know, and when it comes to the hormonal disruption, you know, BPA has been linked to girls going through puberty at much younger ages. And so you can make some changes in your life. For instance, if you're using like plastic Tupperware or plastic containers, if you can try to switch to glass. That might be a better and healthier way of containing your food without contaminating it with microplastics. And so while it is true that sperm counts in parts of the world, including the United States, have declined by at least 50%, over 50 years, we can't say for sure that microplastics are to blame yet. There still needs to be more study into this. Any final thoughts, John?
Yeah, just in general, I think that people, I think a lot of people are already critical of what we allow corporations to emit. I don't think they necessarily understand that you have one party that is pretty weak sauce on dealing with that, and you have another that wants to remove any of the minor regulations that already exist. And it's something that should be prioritized way more, particularly if you find this sort of story as scary as you probably should.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to my shop. Today, we're going to use a laser sensor, a $2 microcontroller, and some Wi-Fi's to build the ultimate remote driveway security sensor. You see, I'm out in the country and my driveway is some 300 feet long, and I want to know when someone is pulling into the head of that driveway. Now, for years, we've had a remote motion sensor about a third of the way down, about at the limit of its range, and it in turn triggers the perimeter motion systems that are now in the house. It's in part so that I can hear it, but more importantly, the dogs can hear it. Whereas I might have lowered my guard by now to assume that the UPS guy isn't a cleverly disguised intruder, the dogs still aren't so sure. And so when they hear the buzzer, they immediately check it out and go crazy when it's someone they don't recognize. And sure enough, it works, and the UPS guy leaves each and every day without breaking in, so the dogs get that reinforcement of a job well done, I guess. But even now, they know the different buzzes made by the different sensors around the property. They know which window to look out automatically. There are actually 3 base stations for the sensor, one upstairs, one downstairs, and one out here in the shop. Each announces in its area, so when the base station out here in the shop inexplicably quit working a week or so ago, I stopped getting driveway alerts in the shop. The security systems are all actually tied into the interior sensors, but the notification was still a convenience that I missed out in the shop, so I had to fix it or replace it. And try as I might, I was not able to fix it. It further turns out that the base units I've had for about 15 years now are no longer made, and worse, no one seems to make one similar these days. An RF receiver with a normally open contact relay that gets triggered in the base station when the remote motion sensor is activated. Having the base station close a relay is how the alarm panel and home automation find out about the event, so it's an important feature for me. It's how the floodlights get turned on automatically, for example, or at least it used to be. Since nobody seems to make one, I decided to make my own. So I sat down and made my feature wish list, and here's what I came up with. First, I wanted a laser or LED beam system, not an infrared motion sensor. The passive IR sensors are okay for people and animals and even most vehicles, but they struggle to notice things with a low heat sensor like the Tesla. I also wanted it to have a sensitivity adjustment so that it wouldn't trigger if just a leaf were by. Next, I needed it to transmit the event to the shop somehow because I wasn't about to run 200 feet of new cabling. That means RF of some kind, and it turns out that 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi is good for a maximum of about 300 feet outdoors. Thus, I decided I would go Wi-Fi. There's also an alternate technology called LoRa that has even longer range, but I was betting that I was within the required range. Finally, I needed it to integrate into my home automation system. Almost all of my automated devices are Insteon, but I've always run local controller software, so it's not on the cloud, and thus I wasn't impacted when Insteon's cloud service went away. But I still have all the devices. The local software I've been running for almost 20 years now runs only on the Mac, but it was the best software I could find 20 years ago, so I've always kept at least one Mac around to run the automation. Now it runs on a dedicated Mac Mini. The goal was that when the beam was tripped at the driveway entrance, something would connect over Wi-Fi and send a message to the Indigo software. And that software will run an event that does things like announce motion in the shop and turn on the driveway spotlights. That something will be a little ESP32 module. I got one on Amazon from Heltec, and it's known as the Wi-Fi Kit 32V3. The plan was to connect the sensor's contact relay to ground and an input pin on the ESP32, and the software would monitor for that closure, and then connect via Wi-Fi and transmit the event to the Indigo server. We'll see the code later, but for now, let's have a look at the overall design. The driveway sensor will live at the end of the driveway. It shoots a beam of light across the driveway to a prismatic reflector that sends it right back to the sensor, where an optical receiver senses that the beam is complete.
Inside? Are you saying there's someone inside?
The sensor notices immediately and closes the contact relay. That relay connects an input pin and ground on the ESP32. The ESP32, which maintains a Wi-Fi connection to my IoT network, notices the closure is active.
Yep, there's one inside.
Essentially a curl web request off to the Indigo web service. The web service is active, shows a WAV file on the shop speakers, notifies the alarm panel, and then turns on the driveway light by sending command packets over a mesh network that controls all of the lighting switches. It's just complicated enough that Mr. Goldberg wouldn't keep me pleased. The rest of the pipeline has been reliable for decades, so I figured all I needed to do was tap it.
I mean, this just became chaos. We stayed there for so fucking long.
Bear with me for 15 seconds from our sponsor. I've just published my new book intended for people that don't have an autism diagnosis, but who suspect they might be somewhere on the spectrum. It's called The Non-Visible Part of the Autism Spectrum, and the link to an exclusive and extensive free sample is in the video description. much everything I know now about living a successful life on the spectrum that I wish I'd known longer ago. Now, back to our sensor. The LED beam supports a range of up to 35 feet and is powered by a very flexible power circuit that can accept DC from 12 to 240
I can't hear you.
DC from 24 to 240. You just connect it without worrying about polarity or AC/DC, and it figures out the rest and just works, which I thought was pretty cool. I need more of that kind of power supply in my life. You position the sensor itself on one side of the driveway, and you place the retroreflective mirror on the other side, which means no wires have to cross the driveway, which can be a big deal. As long as you get some kind of power to the unit itself, that's all you need. The retroreflector is very much like a bicycle or roadside reflector. There's a really good episode of Technology Connections on them, and I'll try to link to that, but what makes them amazing is that they are composed of numerous little inverted mirror pyramids, meaning no matter what angle the light beam comes in, it is reflected directly back to the sensor in a fully reflected ray. That way, as long as the beam strikes the reflector, it will come directly back to the sensor just below it. The ESP32 module is a lot less flexible when it comes to power, and it expects a regulated 5-volt input to either one of the power pins or to the USB-C connector. I went with the latter since I had a 120-volt supply nearby that I could simply plug a simple USB charger into. I was a little skittish about tapping the sensor directly into 120 volts, so I went up using a 20-volt power rig instead for the sensor itself. I'm much too good looking to die over a driveway sensor electrocution accident. The next step was to connect the sensor to the ESP32 module. And here's where I made a bit of a mistake that you can learn from. Because I was bench testing it as I was coding it, I used pin 0 as my input since it's connected to a convenient button right on the Heltec module. That enabled me to get the code working and reacting to the button press as if it were a contact closer without actually worrying about the sensor for now. The only catch is that pin 0 is also a bootstrapping pin on the ESP32, meaning that if your sensor is triggered while you turn on the power to the ESP32, it will try to enter chip flashing mode instead. So long story short, even if you use pin 0 for testing, pick a different pin like pin 5 as your actual input pin when you wire and deploy it. The sensor has about 6 feet of multi-conductor wiring coming out of it, and the wiring is quite straightforward. Blue and brown are the power inputs, and black and white are the contact closure wires that get connected to the ESP32. There's also one more wire that is normally closed, so you're also covered if you're working with a circuit that needs you to break rather than make a connection. But in my case, I just taped that one on. I placed the power connections on the Heltec module inside of a plastic waterproof case. I just assumed the plastic was the way to go here since I needed the Wi-Fi to work, and I'm happy to report that it connects reliably each and every time from about 200 feet away. The sensor is mounted to a sturdy pole, and the Heltec enclosure sits where it has a fairly clean line of sight to the wireless access point. Now what about the code on the ESP32 to monitor the input
Where
into
is
the
that
Wi-Fi
little triangle
connection
guy?
and transmit to the web service? I put the code on GitHub for anybody who wants to replicate my results, and so I'll just give you a quick tour of the highlights here. Hopefully,
Found
even
you,
if you
little
can't
buddy.
read code, you'll then get a sense for how it works. Every Arduino-based project, ESP32 or otherwise, has two important functions in the code that you must provide. The first is called setup, and it's called one time when the chip starts up to do your one-time initialization. Then it calls the loop function you provide repeatedly and forever, and that's where you do your ongoing work. Taking a look at our setup code, it initializes a serial port for logging, and then it clears the Heltec OLED screen, sets the rotation, and draws some status text. Next, we have a button class object, predictably called button. This class handles debouncing the button, which is important with a relay. That's because even though the relay is slammed shut by a magnet internally, it still might bounce a bit and wind up closing several times instead of just once. The class uses interrupts and a timer to sort that out for us.
Hello?
Next, we connect to the Wi-Fi and we loop until we're successful at doing it because there's nothing that this particular program can accomplish without a connection, so we might as well wait. Once we have Wi-Fi, we return out of setup and our loop code will run. Inside the loop code, I clear the screen and print a message that indicates I'm waiting for the button press, which is going to be the contact closure of the relay. If and when the relay closes, the button will register as being pressed and will draw the word pressed on the screen before calling a function called send action. That's the function that will actually connect to the Indigo service and report the driveway motion. The code for this function checks to make sure we're still connected to the Wi-Fi, and if we are, it composes an HTTP request. The request contains a lengthy authorization token for access control, and it is posted to the web server URL. The form of the request is going to be different for every type of automation software, and it will even vary depending on what action you're causing it to take. On the server side, we have an event called Announce Driveway Motion, and this is the event that's going to be invoked by the ESP32's web request. We can see in this test setup, it just does two things. It turns on the driveway spotlights, and it plays a WAV file of intruder alert via the Mac in the shop, which is connected to the room speakers. And that's it. It works great and has been dead solid reliable so far. Now remember, I'm mostly in this for the subs and likes, so if you found today's episode to be any combination of entertaining or informative, I'd be honored if you'd leave me one of each before you go today. And if you're already subscribed, thank you. And thanks for joining me out here in the shop today. In the meantime and in between time, I hope to see you next time, right here in Dave's Garage.
I was a little offended by the fact that Alinity would just assume that I'll just give it up like that.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
Because I
Good
don't
point.
just give it up like that.
Yeah.
I really don't. Let that be known. So I'm just gonna say now, so when I'm having sex with Alinity,
no.
I'm gonna let her know.
Energy ammo here.
This ain't the norm. This ain't.
I was just doing a wellness check. Well, yeah.
Are you doing like some sort of tier list to see who answers?
No, Sinna. I saw the clip of your dad talking about fucking Alinity, and I thought I would be a good friend. I thought I would be a good friend.
You're welcome. I leveled up. I'm done an upgrade too.
Don't take my stuff.
Well, I was just, I didn't make intentions, and here you are, thinking I'm just doing this for a tier list. I think that was Miskiff. He's my father, no matter how old he looks.
Just giving my shields a recharge.
Today I am enlisting your help, and I need your help to help me design the perfect gaming PC. Wait, case, yes. Today's video is brought to you by the new, really super cool JSUSense Melty connector shirt. You know, paying tribute to one of the best designs that's clearly ever existed. And if you don't like the Vaporwave colors, we've got our OG gray and red colors available now. So get yours by following the link in the description below. Ow, I have a thigh cramp. All right, the reason why I got Newegg up here right now is I'm going to use Newegg as kind of an example of like sorting by their most popular cases.
Oh shit, I'm bamboozled.
What is the most popular cases that are sold, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, first and foremost, it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. It's something that people have told me I should do, and I think it's finally going to happen. So airflow and increased noise because of turbulence stuff is all the times, and it is scratched. And if you have lighting in your case, that's my case out constantly. You can leave the fan filters in, easily connect them, and not have too much of an issue there. If you want to do air cooling, it leaves you room to be able to have still a if you can fit a 420, you can fit a 360s. That means a rail system that allows for 120s and 140 fans to fit up there. So you'd have 3 140 millimeter fans on the front as intake, and then you could have technically 2 on the top and 1 on the back to have even airflow for exhaust for 140, so you have balanced airflow. And then if you have an air tower there, you're gonna have lots of cross flow right across that tower, helping with obviously the fans pushing through that tower. But if you're doing water cooling, if you could fit a 420, you can obviously fit a 360 because that's shorter length than a 420. So that means your 360 AIOs would also fit if you don't want to do custom water cooling. Now for me, compartments are important. Ideally, we would have a rad mount in bottom somewhere. That would allow us to have separate loops if we wanted, which means now we're talking a little bit larger volume size. But you could have separate loops if you wanted, so that you can have your GPU completely separate from the CPU, so you don't have all that heat going into the main compartment. Now that's a like to have, not a must have. I just think aesthetically having a plate, a really smooth plate, not one that has a million mounting holes and stuff, but a nice smooth plate to divide your upper compartment from your lower compartment, so all your wiring can be hidden and stuff. You could hide additional pumps or something down there if you don't want to use the motherboard wall. The motherboard wall, let's talk about that. That area that would normally be used for fans, for me, ideally having a rail system that detaches from there, that you can mount your reservoir, your pump, and your pump res combo for water cooling on that wall, bounce it on the table, and then put it back in. So very similar to how a lot of cases have a rail that comes off with a fan mount, so you can add your AIO to the rail or the radiators and then put that in. I want that for the reservoir as well. Now, there's a lot of different mounting options when it comes to reservoirs in the last, let's just say the last 5 years plus. So it'd be hard to be able to have all those holes accounted for, but at least having the major ones accounted for when it comes to like standard D5 mounts or DDC mounts or whatever. Or a lot of reservoirs now come with mounts that are basically 120 millimeter space. That way they can attach to radiators and other fan mounts. Having some of those holes drilled in there automatically would be nice. But having it not look like a cheese plate where it's just full of holes everywhere because that just looks terrible. But having enough solid space to where if you wanted to drill your own holes to mount your own reservoir and stuff, it's there and still looks clean. It would even be nice to just have it be perfectly flat. That way if you want to do something fun, like mount a piece of colored acrylic or something to your reservoir and then mount the acrylic on there through holes that already exist, mod friendly is kind of important to me. Side-by-side compartments, I don't know yet. I mean, that's kind of where things have gone for case designs now for a while, honestly, since Lean and the Dynamic launched, or the 011 series. The nice thing about side-by-side is the fact that you can have a shorter case overall, but now you have a much wider case. So there's a lot, this is where you guys really have to sound off, because I think that's the number one thing I'm conflicted on, is a side-by-side compartment or a top-bottom compartment. I personally would want a narrower case that's taller than one that's lower and wider. That's just me, because the width takes up more real estate on your desk. If you have enough vertical space, that's better for real estate on the desk. So I'm leaning towards a top-bottom compartment type of chassis. But enough about that. Let's see what's popular now and see if there's maybe any features that I haven't really talked about yet. One other thing that's important to me is just having some simple options to be able to mount drains and fills. So Fantex has been really good about this. Fantex on all of their like mid-sized towers and up have a hole on the top that's like the perfect size to put a bulkhead fitting, that you could have a tube going right to the top of your reservoir that you can just plug off, and you can use that to fill your reservoir when it starts to either evaporate some of the fluid, because open loops always lose some. And then as air makes its way out of the system, you can top it off by even having a double channel. And then two, having one on the bottom or on the back that you can easily plumb a drain to. So it's just ease of access to getting the idea of intakes, like fill ports and drain ports. Okay, so let's go ahead and see, if we go to Newegg and sort by most popular cases, what is like number one on Newegg, and then let's go down from there. Best ratings not working. Let's go for best selling, because there's only 8, 6, 48, 6, 6. There's not enough feedback on there. Okay, so best selling, 4000D. That's got 1,245 reviews. I'm not surprised. The 4000D is a really good mid-tower case. It's only $90 currently on sale. The Fantex XT Pro Ultra mid-tower. I mean, you can see where some of these off-brand cases get their designs from, right? $80 for that. Okay, the NZXT H9 Flow. 5 eggs with 145 reviews on that. Dual chamber mid-tower. So you can see again, I mean, I built in the H9. It's a solid case, but it's definitely derivative of like an 011. That just looks like Turbulent City to me. You got 3 fans coming in on the side, 3 fans coming in on the top, so they're converging in this weird kind of a, man. See, this is what's hard. You try and think like outside the box, what makes something different. 011 Dynamic Evo. One thing I like about the 011 Evo though is the fact that it's modular, so you can change things out. But look, this only has fans on the bottom and on the side. That makes sense there'd be no front fans, only because there's no lower compartment. So it makes sense to just have air naturally rise, right? Now, convection obviously is extremely weak. It's extremely weak. The natural rise of heat is much weaker than any fan force. We can put those 15 millimeter slim fans that kind of suck and barely blow on here, and it would overcome convection. But anyway, this is just that tried and true design, you know? But again, it's a bit wider than a standard cube or rectangle, and I feel like I'm gonna lean towards the rectangle. One thing I think also is gonna be important for me is it has to have EATX support. I find a lot of people that do custom water cooling also tend to lean towards EATX boards, because it's that overkill mindset, to be honest. Custom water cooling, open loop, it's not cheap. If you're putting that much money into a system, then I feel like a lot of people have shopped EATX boards, and just having support for it's important. I don't like when cases just flat out don't support it at all. I at least want the option to be there. The Fantex NV5, that's an interesting case too. I like how we have the lower compartment here, but I also like how it doesn't necessarily, you don't lose the volume of having enough room in the front. So You do, again, only have intake on the motherboard wall. So like, if this were my design, I would have lost this entirely. I would have made that a plate that can come out and be able to mount stuff to like a reservoir, and I would move these fans to the front. Because then, as air's coming in, this almost acts like a little ramp to kind of push air up to the GPU if you're going air cooling. But you would also get this full height available to you to potentially even fit like a 480 in the front. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, maybe not, but you can fit a 420 in there, it looks like for sure. I can't tell if those are 140s or 120s. Oh look, even an intake fan right there, which is interesting, but I wouldn't utilize that because again, that's just pushing right against that air.
Where's
But I
our
think if
buddy
we move
going?
these fans to
Oh
the front,
shit, there's already teams
don't put a fan
there.
down there, and let that be a little bit maybe more
We're just
tapered
getting this going.
for like a nice smooth ramp right up to your GPU that's air cooled, which is what this one is. So you'd be feeding cold air right to the GPU where it matters most. But I think we could fit a 420 rad. But here's the thing, like for instance, let's say this was a custom water cooling loop here. You see how the radiator back here would be interfering with this rad up here, or these fans at least. This is where the game of inches and sometimes even millimeters really matter. And to build something, manufacture it, tool it, and then realize later, like, dang, if we only had an extra inch, how many times have we heard that, guys? Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. You have your two basic designs. You've got like your Corsair 4000, 5000, and then you've got your Lee & Lee 011 and such. So aesthetically, like if you look at my SMA8, that is a boring case. It's huge. It's far larger than it would be, than anything I would want to create. But that's because it fits everything in there. And I only go dual loops in that system because it's the only way I can make it look full. So obviously I want it to be a full tower. I think a full tower is important, but you can make full towers that are not ginormous. Just like mid towers these days, I think barely qualify as mid towers. Like mid towers, if you went back 10 years ago, would be full towers of that era. So triple 140 on top and front that can support 420 rads without interfering. Fill ports, drain port support on there, a compartment that separates the upper compartment from the PSU area. It's just nice to have a place to hide wires and stuff. Not to mention, PSUs have gotten shorter over time, but long PSUs, like back in the day, if you're reusing one that you bought that was like 1200 watts, you're like, I'm not gonna spend $300 on a new PSU. Shorter shrouds like on that NV9 would be a problem because it probably won't fit with enough room to put all your wires down there. And I don't wanna have to stuff them all between the back like component. I also think it would be nice to have a hinged side panel, but hinged side panels sometimes are very expensive to manufacture, it's just nice to be able to know like it's gonna line up when you close it, right? But yeah, this is a hard design. Obviously it needs to be able to be long enough to deal with modern graphics cards, like up to, I don't wanna leave any components out, so up to 400 or 4090 GPUs, which are super long, enough width so that with the extra height on GPUs plus the 12-volt power connectors not being crushed between the side panel. We all know how many people with 4080s and up were not able to even close their side panels anymore because of the height of the GPUs plus the 12-volt power connector. But obviously, needs to be able to have offset rails to be able to deal with the extra heights of VRMs on motherboards now, especially when we're dealing with very high power parts. Like the AM5 socket sets have very tall VRMs, and so do Z690, Z790, and even older motherboards. EATX is a must to support.
How are they jumping them on fire? What is that?
Or EEB, whatever that format is, the super wide like server format, that doesn't need to be supported. But EATX would be nice, especially with a lot of them going with 180-degree connectors now, so you don't even have room to make the bend. Like that would just be a nice thing to be able to support if possible. Beyond that, this is where I need your guys' help, because I'll be honest, this is so much harder than I thought it would be. Fortunately, the team I'm working with has a lot of experience with case design. I mean, we're talking like 25 years, but they're honest. They were like, we've never really thought about how to design a case around open water loops. So this is where we really would like your feedback and your design, and we're gonna put your name on it. So anyway, like I said, it's important to note, no kickback, no money, not a penny will be earned for this, for the company. I just love the idea of being able to give true design input and see something come of it. And we're not gonna settle, we're gonna make it right. And if it takes time to do that, then that's how long it takes. So with that said, please help us design this like the best gaming PC case we could possibly design. Of course, there's no perfect case. And there's no suggestion here that's gonna meet everyone's needs. But I would love to have some feedback from you guys down in the comments to see what are the most important things. So do me a favor, pick maybe the top 5 3 to 5 of your must-haves on a PC other than price. Because obviously we would all love to have like the best PC case with every feature and it costs $20. That's not gonna happen. Okay, I understand that. But maybe put in there a range, like, or you say, I won't spend any more than X amount of dollars on a case. Because that's a real factor in all of this. So it's a Venn diagram. We gotta find the spot where everything overlaps that maybe someone hasn't already come up with.
How do you suppose up to 4 players can compete with each other on this old pinball machine filled with nothing but wires and relays? Well, with wacky contraptions like this one here. This is the player game, and with the help of 2 other mechanisms inside this machine, it will alter the machine's programming to allow competing players to take turns as the game progresses.
Let's move.
Welcome to part 3 of a
stay,
deep
okay.
dive into this electromechanical pinball machine. If you haven't seen the earlier videos, be warned parts of this might be hard to follow. Linky dinks are available to find part 1 and 2, but I'll do my best here to lightly recap important concepts where necessary. First though, let's talk about something simple. This machine has several anti-cheating measures built into it. They're designed
Yeah, you
to detect
tilt it,
a
it makes
player
continuity.
moving the
It
machine
swings
and
and it goes,
penalize
"Boop."
them if they do so. Skilled players are able to physically push the game cabinet around to keep the ball from draining, a technique called nudging. And for the record, I suck at that. But if you're good at it, you can become much more likely to get a high score and win a replay. Operators don't love those. They want your quarters, not your satisfaction. So if you get too rough, the machine will register a tilt. The tilt light comes on, the flippers shut off, and you're forced to lose that ball. Now, if tilt seems like a weird word to describe this penalty, tilting is a very old pinball term dating back to the flipperless ball shooting machines of the 1930s. As those became popular, before long, they started becoming used as gambling devices. Initially, this was just the players making bets on each other, but later the manufacturers started leaning into it. The written rules of the games they sold would soon award credits for certain high scores, and the proprietor of the establishment which hosted the games would pay those credits out to winners. As this practice spread, cheating became a serious problem, especially since these early games were small and light enough that you could easily pick them up and manipulate how the balls would roll around. So they needed a way to warn the proprietor of the establishment that the game cabinet had been tilted during the game. In the early days, there were many clever ways this was done, which, to save time, I won't get into, but it usually involved a simple mechanism with a precariously perched object that reset with the coin slide. At the start of the game, something like a ball would find itself on top of a stick, and if it fell off that perch, that meant the game was tilted during play, and that would void the score and thus prevent any payouts. The early and problematic relationship between gambling and pinball led to it being outlawed in some locales for many years. And by the way, Williams, they still exist. They make slot machines. And Bally? That name's on some casinos, isn't it? Though that lineage is much murkier. The Bally name and logo also ended up on fitness centers, and theme parks, and sports networks. Anyway, pinball machines with flippers were usually earnestly meant for amusement only. Like this one. You can tell because it says, for amusement only. But since you can score free games, usually there's a fun legal loophole I'll cover later, and free games hurt the operator's bottom line, anti-cheating measures are still in place. And this machine has several anti-cheating devices. This one here is the most common. Pretty much every pinball machine from the 1940s through today has a mechanism just like this, called the tilt bob. You might also call it a plumb bob because that's technically what it is. A conical weight is suspended on a rod, much like a pendulum, and the weight rests in the center of a ring which surrounds it but doesn't touch it. 24 volts AC is applied across the weight and that ring, meaning together they are really just a strange pair of switch contacts. If someone were to start shaking the machine, the weight will start to swing and get close to the ring. Shake it too hard, and they'll touch. And guess what that does? It sends voltage to the tilt relay. If the tilt relay energizes, it locks on, illuminates the tilt indicator, and opens this switch. That disables practically everything in the game, so you will instantly stop scoring points. And most importantly, the flippers are disabled, so you will lose the ball. The tilt penalty is only the ball in play, so unless you tilted on your last ball, the game isn't over. But you also lose any bonus points you might have accumulated during that ball, and even an extra ball if you manage to score one. To pour salt in the wound, the machine still executes the bonus sequence as normal once the ball lands in the out hole, but the tilt relay prevents it from awarding any points, so it becomes a sadistic countdown where you watch it deny every point you had previously built up. Once that's complete though, the out-hole relay energizes as normal, which untrips the tilt relay, and the game continues. As you may have guessed, the weight can be moved up and down on the rod to increase or decrease the sensitivity of the tilt switch. Stingy operators would move the weight very far up, so the widest diameter of the cone almost entirely filled the ring. But those with more forgiving temperaments might lower it, so more violent shaking was needed for the machine to register a tilt. And right above the tilt bob is a second tilt switch in this machine. A ball is placed in this track, which, like the tilt bob, is energized at 24 volts. The track is a little knackered, as the original ball is missing, and the second pinball is just a little too big, but it does work. If the ball rolls forward and touches this contact, since the ball was energized by the track, the tilt relay will trip. This is designed to detect that someone is lifting the front of the machine to make the playfield level and keep the ball from draining. These electromechanical games have fairly shallow playfields, so the normal tilt switch wouldn't necessarily swing enough to trip in that case. At least
We should probably leave.
Now, these aren't the only two kinds of tilt switches out there. In fact, this machine has a third one hanging on the playfield, and there were other varieties in use throughout the years. But before I move on, if you spied the anti-cheat switch in the schematic earlier, that's actually something else entirely unrelated to tilting. That switch is normally closed and in series with the coin switches. It lives on the coin door, and you'll notice that here it's labeled anti-slam switch. This switch is there because someone banging on the coin door could cause the leaf switches of the coin mechanisms to close and start the game without actually paying for a game. If they try that, the anti-slam switch will open to prevent a false purchase. Later machines in the solid-state era would use this switch to trigger a slam tilt, which is a much more severe penalty. Slam tilts end the game entirely as a punishment for someone bashing on the coin door or perhaps violently kicking the machine. This game, though, has no ability to do that. With the cheating out of the way, let's talk about how this machine handles multiplayer games. As a quick refresher, this is just a huge mess of wires we're asking to do stuff for us. To perform specific tasks, the machine uses the score motor, which is a contraption that rhythmically actuates a whole bunch of switches in stacks. When combined with the various relays throughout the machine, which connect those switches to other devices, the machine can execute automated sequences. It might perform some action multiple times, which is how targets like this award 5,000 points, or the switches might activate several different mechanisms in a logical sequence. You might call that a program. Relays aren't the only thing which determines what all those switches in the score motor do, though. The game is also filled with several stepper units. These contraptions rewire the machine based on their physical position, which will change as other actions take place. These can be used as a simple kind of memory, such as in the ball count unit and the bonus unit, or they might alter specific steps in the machine's program depending on their position. And this stepper, called the coin unit, is what determines how many players can play the game. How does it do that? Well, when you deposit a quarter, the coin switches trip the coin relay, which causes the machine to reset everything, including the coin unit. Once reset, its main program loop begins, and it serves the first ball to you. And now, you have a choice. You can either plunge that ball and commit to a single-player game, or you can give the machine another quarter to add a second player. If you deposit another quarter, the machine doesn't reset this time. Since the game was powered on by the first quarter, the now latched game over relay locks out the reset relay. That prevents the coin relay and the score motor from resetting the game a second time, and instead causes it to do only one thing: step the coin unit up. With the coin unit now in its second position, the back glass indicates that 2 can play. These lights are controlled with this wiper arm here, with each of those contacts wired to one of the 4 light sockets. But the other wipers in the coin unit are doing something more interesting. Through their new position, they have altered the end of ball sequence. That sequence occurs at the end of a ball via the outhole relay, and it has 4 discrete steps. First, the score motor will pulse the ball count unit step-up coil to move the game from ball 1 to ball 2. Next, it pulses the player unit reset coil, which resets the player unit. Then the bonus unit step-up coil gets a pulse to put it back on 5,000 points for the next ball. And finally, the ball release coil is pulsed to return the ball to the shooter lane. That sequence works fine for single-player games, but it doesn't work for the 2-player game we have just paid for. After the first player has played their first ball and lost it, step 1 in that sequence, advancing the ball count unit, can't happen. The game does need to return the ball so player 2 can play their turn, but the game should still be on ball 1. To accomplish this, the coin unit serves as an interrupt. Although the end of ball sequence does still occur, the coin unit will not allow the ball count unit to advance in step 1. Remember this convoluted circuit path in the schematic? In order for the ball count unit to receive the pulse of power coming from the outhole relay, that pulse has to make it through the coin unit. And with the coin unit in the second position for a 2-player game, this link is moved down from here to here. Thus, the original circuit path is broken, and the ball count unit cannot advance. Great, that makes sense. But the machine also has to switch from player 1 to player 2. How's that happen? Well, remember how the second step in the end of ball sequence was to reset the player unit? You might have wondered what that does. The player unit is what we looked at in the opening. It's another stepper unit that lives in the back box, and it's arguably the most complicated of them all. It's got a ton of wires attached to it, and rather than wiper arms, it's got a fiberglass disc with 24 spring-loaded contacts sliding over a sea of brass rivets, almost like snowshoes. Those contacts on the moving disc are simply linked together in pairs, so what they actually do is bridge together a different set of wires connected to the rivet board depending on the mechanism's position. Despite its apparent complexity, the bulk of this unit's job is actually pretty simple. There are 4 score displays in this machine, but only one of those displays should have points added to it as the ball hits targets. This device is what controls that. The player unit connects the points relays in the back box to only one set of score reels at a time, and it illuminates the player up lights to show which set of score reels is active, and thus which player is up. Of course, then it has 4 positions, 1 position for each player. Its reset position is for player 1, and it will always return there when the reset coil is fired. That was step 2 in the end of ball sequence, reset the player unit. But at the end of the first player's first ball, we need the opposite to occur. We need it to step up to player 2. And sure enough, that's what happens after the first ball is lost, with a nice and distinct clap. Why did that happen? If you guessed the coin unit had something to do with it, You'd be guessing correctly, but only indirectly.
Watch yourself.
Let's find the player unit step-up coil on the schematic.
An enemy landed near me.
Here it is.
Watch yourself.
Now, it gets its pulse from the out-hole relay and switch 2B in the score motor. But looky here. It's got to go through a make-break switch in the player reset relay. There's always another relay. If that relay is energized, then the player unit will reset in the end of ball sequence. But if it's not energized, the player unit will step up. So it must not have been energized during the first end of ball sequence. Why not?
We're just gonna play for
Because
points at this
ball
point,
count unit
buddy.
couldn't
We're at
step
negative
up.
10.
The
Let's get
coil for
even.
that player reset relay gets energized by an end of stroke
Are you cool with
switch
that?
in the ball
K
count unit.
Delicio.
That means the ball count
K
unit has to
Delicio.
physically move in order for the player reset relay to energize and cause the player unit to reset. So,
Que delicioso! This is very delicioso!
just prevented the ball count unit
We just got to positive 5, delicioso.
the ball count stayed on ball 1. And because of that, the player reset relay could not energize, and thus the next pulse coming from switch 2B via the out-hole relay stepped the player unit up instead of resetting it. And now that the player unit has moved to its second position, player 2 is up. The next ball that's played will add points to the second player's score reels. And that's literally the only difference as far as how the game operates when the ball is on the playfield. Once the second player's first ball is lost, the machine will execute the end of ball sequence as it always does. But now we want the machine to advance to ball 2 and go back to player 1. How will that happen? You might have spotted it already. Since the player unit has moved to the player 2 position, the coin unit is no longer interrupting the ball count unit. That link which moved down from here to here, well, take a look at the player unit right next to it. When player 1 was up, its link was at the top, so the circuit was broken. But with player 2 up, the link is now in the second position, and that matches the coin unit. So when player 2 loses their ball, the pulse coming from the out-hole relay and switch 1C to advance the ball count unit will now make it through. And of course, once it does, the ball count unit will advance. So its end of stroke switch energizes the player reset relay, meaning the next pulse in the sequence, which comes from switch 2B, will in fact reset the player unit back to player 1. And so, ball 2, player 1. So what would happen if we gave the machine 3 quarters at the start for a 3-player
Got
game?
one more, man.
Well, that would step the coin unit into its third position. And its link, as shown on the schematic, moves down to here. That means the coin unit will interrupt the ball count unit until the player unit is on player 3. So the first player loses their ball, and in the end of ball sequence, the player unit steps up to player 2. Then the second player loses their ball, and the same exact thing happens. The player unit steps up to player 3. But with the player unit in the player 3 position, the next time a ball is lost, the coin unit's interrupt is bypassed. So the ball count unit can advance as normal, which then allows the player reset relay to reset the player unit back to player 1. Put simply, the coin unit is saying, you must not advance the ball count until the player unit has reached player 3. And once that condition is met, the ball count unit can advance, which of course moves the game along, but also, through the player reset relay, puts player 1 back up to bat. Now the last thing to address here is how extra balls work in multiplayer games. If you score one, the extra ball relay locks on. And you may recall from the previous videos that this prevents the ball count unit from advancing, so you get a free ball. But if we look at the schematic again, you'll see that in fact the first and second step in the end of ball sequence are interrupted by the extra ball relay. The ball count pulse and the player unit pulse both go through this normally closed switch. So if it's open thanks to you scoring
Legendary
an extra ball,
Sarge says,
neither will happen.
we are reading.
So at the end of your ball, the game awards the bonus points and then simply
Legendary
returns
Sarge
the ball.
says,
And that's why the
"Chatham
light on the back
VAIOS."
glass says same player shoots again. In a single player game, it's just a free ball. But in a multiplayer game, it interrupts the game's progression from one player to the next. So, if you've got your head around all that, I have great news. That's the most complex thing in this video. From here on out, things get easier. And now's a good time to explain something about pinball machines from this time period. If you haven't noticed it before, the playfield completely resets after the ball is lost. Every ball begins with no letters lit and the bonus at 5,000 points. This was a compromise which made multiplayer games possible. Single-player games of this time period often had fairly deep and complex rule sets which unfolded over the game. But multiplayer games couldn't do that. Relay logic is what powers these things, and there isn't a practical way to save the state of each player's progress. Some games might enable different features depending on the ball in play. Gottlieb, for instance, was very fond of doubling the bonus on the last ball. But multiplayer capability required a fairly simple rule set. And in most cases, these multiplayer games are better understood as one-ball games, which are merely repeated a few times in the hopes of getting a very high score. And you might want to get a very high score in the hopes of winning a free game. Which brings us to the credit unit. This is another stepper unit which lives in the back box. It's a step-up, step-down stepper like the bonus unit. One coil moves it up by one position, and the other moves it back down by only one position. This little window in the back glass graphics reveals what position the stepper is in, and thus whether there are any credits on the machine and how many. If there are none, this is blank. But you might have earned yourself a replay by getting a high score, or perhaps a special. In that case, the credit unit step-up coil is fired, and the window will show a 1. And now the game can be started again using the start button on the front. With a credit on the machine, the start button will energize the coin wheel, just as if you had inserted a coin, and so the game will start. It also steps the credit unit down to remove one credit. Now, much like the bonus unit, to the game logic, the credit unit can only be in one of two states: no credits or yes credits. The number of credits shown simply indicates how many steps away from the 0 position the mechanism happens to be, and thus how many times a credit can be removed and a game started or a player added before it's back to 0. All this thing is doing is pressing on this switch stack with this peg. If it's got a credit, the peg has moved away from the stack and this switch is closed. That connects the start button to the coin relay. And if it doesn't have a credit, the peg presses on the stack and
they're
this
coming
switch
after
is
you?
open,
Fuck it, I'm moving
which
then.
disables the start button. There's another peg on the same wheel, which will press the switch stack from the other direction once it hits it, and this defines the maximum number of credits the machine will store. Once this switch is open, the credit unit step-up coil is disconnected, and it can't add any more. You can move that peg to a few different positions, which alter the maximum number of credits the machine will allow. Incidentally, the mere presence of this thing is what kept pinball illegal in some jurisdictions even after flipper games became common. Some lawmakers apparently believed that if you could win a free game, you could then sell it, I guess, to another player, and then somehow that made this a gambling machine. Now, this sounds absurd at first, but it's a little understandable when you know that the same companies that made these pinball machines also made bingo machines. Those looked an awful lot like pinball machines built into identical cabinets, but they didn't have flippers, and they were explicitly gambling machines. Bingo machines were terribly addictive and insidious devices. They tended to make your odds of winning slightly better by quasi-randomly enabling more features and thus making a win slightly more likely if you gave them more money
that
before
I got
the
out of
clock
that?
on the timed game,
Bro.
to mention it's a timed game, ran out. I've linked to a very good explanation from a collector if you'd like to learn more about them. Those machines also awarded credits if you won, which were technically just free games, but you might win hundreds at a time, and the proprietor could knock them off the machine with a hidden button and pay you out their cash value. The distinction between pinball machines and bingo machines might seem obvious enough in hindsight, but anyone who knows how poorly Congress seems to understand the internet should be able to piece together why this confusion occurred. The pinball manufacturers were crafty, though. They just
know we're
wanted to
coming behind
sell
them.
these machines to operators. Vertical integration and strict profit-sharing agreements weren't trendy yet, so they only made their profit when they sold the machines. They didn't care how they got used. So, to get around some of the stricter anti-pinball laws, they began producing altered versions of their flipper games known as add-a-ball machines. In these games, there was no credit unit. You couldn't win a free game. Law satisfied. But you could win more balls. These machines, rather than displaying the ball in play, showed balls to play. The ball count unit became a step-up, step-down stepper, and the game was configured to begin with a certain number of balls, let's say 5. Then, when you lost that ball, it would step down to 4 remaining. The game would end once you reached 0 balls remaining, of course, but you could fairly easily add a ball through scoring enough points or hitting a certain target sequence. And you could often end up with more balls to play than you started with. Ah, loopholes. Oh, that's also partly why the outlanes on this machine say special when lit rather than replay when lit. The operator could configure this to award an extra ball rather than a credit, which would be enough to satisfy at least some of the weird legal prudes out there. I think that might also be why the credit unit doesn't show a 0. Disable replays and make the special an extra ball, and then there's plausible deniability that this machine can even store credits. Then again, it was also just an option given to operators and would enable the same playfield design to be used in both add-a-ball and replay machines, so I'm not sure how much the legal issue
Oh, I didn't know we even had a third guy. I'm
special,
an idiot.
but the
I'm
use
sorry.
of it
I'm
to
high.
imply
I didn't know there was
replay
someone else
was
with
nearly
Actually, I got a
universal
respawn beacon
unless you
with
lived
me.
where it was legal.
I didn't know we had his time.
But of course, I've skipped the most important thing. What adds credits in the first place? Well, first, of course, there's the outlanes when lit for a special. When it's lit and the ball hits the switch, the credit unit steps up. The lane is only lit if the bonus unit is at the maximum position and you've lit every letter in Aztec, so it's pretty hard to score a special. Plus, which outlane is lit flips back and forth as you hit 10-point targets, so it's pretty rare to earn one this way. But you can also win replays by getting a high enough score. How's that work? Well, until now, I've been deliberately ignoring all these wires going to some of the score reels. 3 of the 5 reels in every player position have a circuit board attached to it. That board has 11 wires coming from it, a common connection and 10 wires for each of the 10 digits on that reel. A wiper on that circuit board connects the common connection to
I'm gonna
one
stop
of
doing
the 10
craft on the way
wires.
in if I can.
That wiper is attached to the drum, so as it rotates, the single wire connected to the common wire changes, with the specific wire connected corresponding to the number shown on the drum. How does that give you free games? Well, here in the back box, you'll find a rather strange adjustment jack. This connector has 10 positions, and next to it are 9 differently colored wires with their own plugs. Those loose wires are connected to the drums at the 100,000 position, and the connector you plug them into has each hole wired to the drums of the 10,000 position. This guide here shows you how to use them. If you want to award a replay at 350,000 points, then you need to plug the yellow wire for scores between 310,000 and 400,000 into the bottom left hole of the connector, the 50,000 position. Now, what that actually did was link the 3 in the 100,000 score reel to the 4 in the 10,000 score reel. Bet you thought I was going to say 5. But see, the machine has to add that credit at the moment the display first reads 35 something points. And the action which takes place before that happens is the rolling of this digit from 4 to 5. What actually moves that score reel forward in the game is the 10,000 point relay. So what these plugs do is connect this switch in the 10,000 point relay to the credit unit step up coil, but that connection goes through the first 2 score reels. If and when they are in the correct position, in this case 3 and 4, then the next pulse of the 10,000 point relay will of course roll the 4 up to a 5, but it will also award a credit. And here's that mess of wiring drawn in the schematic.
Come on!
On the left
Who's
are the
resin?
10,000 point score reels, and on the right are the 100,000 point reels.
I'm not even
The
in that
adjustment
fight
jack
with
is
you.
in the middle. Like the player unit, these arrows represent the
Maybe
length
if you
the
said
score
something
reels
a
are
long
making
time
based on
before
their
that.
position. And since the schematic is drawn with the game reset, the top position is 0, then 1 through 9 follow. The yellow wire is connected to the 3 in the 100,000 point score reels. And when it's plugged into this position on the adjustment jack, then when the displays read 3, 4 something something points, there's a link through all this mess and up to this switch here. The next time the 10,000 point relay energizes, as it will when rolling the 4 to a 5, it sends a pulse through the credit or extra ball adjustment and finally through to the credit unit.
I mean,
step
don't
up
push
coil.
this. Don't push that.
And
There's
so,
people there.
You want to replay. Which brings us to knockers. When the machine awards credits, it also energizes the knocker. This is a solenoid attached to the cabinet, which simply whacks its bracket to make a knocking sound. Why? The exact reason is likely lost in history, but the sound is unique and lets both players and operators know that speed gaming was won. On these electromechanical games, the knocker is fairly subtle, but into the solid-state era, the manufacturers started
I can't
having
do this.
fun
I don't have
making
any
them
ammo.
Startlingly loud. In
I
machines
just lost
from the
all my
early
heavy ammo
90s,
doing that.
The sound level is similar to a balloon popping in your face.
That's what happens when you shoot blindly into trees.
What do you mean blinding in the trees? I was hitting them, you dumbass.
That is until they got too cheap to put
Yeah, I
in
was hitting their shield and I was hitting them after I broke their.
damage. You have 135.
I broke their shield down.
Williams
Oh my
started
god.
They at
Oh
this
my
point
god,
had
says the
managed
guy
to
who's
position
dead.
their games.
What does it matter? What does it matter if I do damage or not if I'm dead?
If you know, you know. Put it back, guys. That
Exactly my point.
You were doing
Also,
damage to the
fun
shield,
knocker
moron.
fact. While video games really did a number on the pinball manufacturers, some notable early arcade games were made by the likes of Bally, Williams, and Gottlieb. Gottlieb produced Q*bert, and for fun, they installed one of their knocker coils into the game cabinet so it made an actual thud shortly after Q*bert fell off the board. Also, Haunted Mansion fans, that rap on a table is probably coming from a pinball knocker, or at least something quite similar. Now, did you notice something when we were looking at all this mess? The player unit was also involved. If you're wondering why, well, what would happen if, say, player 2 lost their ball, and then, once they were awarded their bonus points, they ended up with 345,720 points. Player 2's score reels would then display 3 and 4, so the 10,000 point relay would be set up to award the win. But when any other player is up, that connection must be broken. Otherwise, the next player to score enough points to bump their 10,000 point relay will win player 2's replay undeservedly. So the player unit only connects the score reels of the player that's currently up to the credit unit.
Like, bro, I couldn't do it anymore. I love tech ingredient, tech connections, but no. Buddy, you just were killing me right there. Uh-oh.
Nintendo Sonic service. Igor's pissed off about something. Let's see it. I bet it's, unless this is the fucking $10,000 1,000 hertz monitor, then we're not even discussing it. And now let's go here to Wargaming, close. What? Play. Let's go here, let's go library. Library, watch later. Let's remove this too, remove that one, remove that one, remove that one, remove that one, remove that one. Done, done, done. Okay, we're there. Reload. And okay,
I
Lou.
heard a very philosophical story from Steve Harvey show. He said that every time he got paid, he was saving a little bit so he could get a new car. Every time he got back home.
Behind me there is the world's first bendable OLED gaming monitor, the Corsair Xeneon Flex. Xeneon? Now, the first couple of generations of flexible and foldable screens we've seen on phones have kind of failed to catch on. Too many compromises, too fragile, bad feel, lumps and seams and whatnot. Not there yet. But similar technologies apply to large, high refresh rate gaming monitors. Oh my! I'm not being hyperbolic or YouTube title baity here when I say this is a game changer. This is the future of gaming monitors. Or at least I hope it is.
No,
I
it's
really
not.
do.
That
Although
thing
again,
has
I
been
am
out,
Blunty,
buddy.
and this thing's been out on the market for a little while now. So in this
Yeah,
review,
what are
I'm
you
not
talking
focusing
about?
on the specs much. So if you need to know how many nits it spits out or the lab results and whatnot, if you're really interested in charts and graphs and things, you can find that elsewhere. No, I'm doing the kind of review I like best, both to do and to watch myself, a user review. What is this thing actually like to use as a normal person? Or at least a big dork gamer. Normal. Now, I've had this for several months now. It's a borrowed unit and has to go back soon. And I'm ready to tell you all about how grouchy I'm going to be when I have to send it back to Corsair, because I don't want to. So, I first saw this thing in the flesh at PAX Australia late last year. From a distance, it looks like any other ultra-wide, of course, but then I watched one of Corsair's booth
Done
people
with
grab
you,
the sides of it, yoink out a pair of handles, and bend the damn thing. Now,
An apple pie. I can lick it, I can ride.
Good luck and fair seas. Awaiting instructions. Good luck and fair seas.
We've heard you. We will no longer be promoting VPNs.
All right, let's go.
What, that's it? Yes, King Linus, that's it. But as short as the outrage cycle was, that doesn't mean that people's concerns about the VPN industry were invalid. Tom Scott did a great video back then covering a lot of them, and we're going to touch on some of his more nuanced points later. But the big one that really ignited the wave of distrust was his takedown of the inaccurate, fear-mongering VPN talking points that your Nana's favorite podcaster was parroting without the slightest understanding of them. That was a big problem. But the thing is, none of that was ever part of our deal with private internet access, and even Tom worked with a VPN provider recently before he went on hiatus earlier this year. So I think it's time for us to take another look at what VPNs do, what they don't do, and whether they're worth it in insert current year. Now, to keep things clean, this video will not be brought to you by a VPN, but rather by our sponsor, DeleteMe. DeleteMe helps protect you against the risks of identity theft, phishing, and even robocalls and other scams by removing your data from hundreds of data broker websites. We'll talk more about them later. A VPN, or virtual private network, does exactly what it says on the tin. It establishes an encrypted tunnel between your computer and a remote server, allowing some or all of your network traffic to be routed through that server before it goes to its destination. That's about it. But don't let the simplicity fool you. A VPN can be an incredibly powerful and versatile tool, which is why virtual private networking has been built into Windows for almost 30 years. Now, back in those days, the server you were connecting to was probably run by your work IT department and enabled you to do exciting things like connect to shared drives and internal servers, as though you were physically in the office when you were actually working from home or abroad. And another big one, at least for young me, was gaming. See, in the early days, many games supported LAN multiplayer, but didn't necessarily support internet multiplayer. So virtual private networking was a way for me and my friend, who were actually many miles apart, to play LAN games together. Now, both of those are still common use cases, but they aren't the ones that get a lot of marketing. So when the average consumer thinks of a VPN, it's more likely that they're thinking about a commercial VPN provider who has servers all over the world to give your internet traffic, let's say, a British accent so you can watch your favorite baking program without getting burnt by a location check. Now, most commercial VPN providers also offer extras like ad blocking, antivirus, password managers, remote access, and even dark web monitoring. But none of that is the VPN. It's just add-ons to entice you away from the competition in a very competitive marketplace. So at the end of the day, the VPN portion does two things. It obscures your IP address, helping hide your physical location from the sites and